Fast Hemi, good to have you here. The panel is pumped up. We're pumped up. Third phase, good to have you here. Silent listen. Don't be so silent in our chat room, okay? Have some fun here. That's what it's all about. Once again, we want to say thank you to Human Carl for the super chat. It's a great way to support this show. It's also a great way to support us. Give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, whatever you feel we deserve. Hit that subscribe button if you are brand new. And if you go to facebook.com/Spaced Out Radio, that's where we store all of our really cool swag. And we'd love it if you took the time to go check that out, see if there's anything you like there. Remember, if you're in the U.S., you're paying in Canadian dollars, which means I think $1 American is worth about, $49.68 in Canadian money right now. So here we go, everyone. Let's enjoy tonight's show. We're going to launch this in 5 seconds, and I hope you enjoyed as much as I do. I will try to get to your questions. Here we go. The mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. I'm sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio, along with KPNL. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Now, if you're into the UFO world, you've heard the name Tim McMillan and his new website, thedebrief.org. Well, they had a bombshell of a story on UFOs earlier this week. Over the past couple of months now, the UFO world has been relatively quiet. Many speculating it was regarding the presidential election, but it's back now. And Tim came out firing. He dropped the gloves. He named names, talking about hidden programs, recent sightings, and now a new photograph that is stirring up plenty of controversy on UFO Twitter. Tim will be with us in hour number 2. But right now, we've got one of the best panels on the radio right now. We have legendary researcher Grant Cameron, his assistant Nicole Sakach, from Science Bob and Friends, the big man himself, Science Bob McGwier, and Big Bad Sean Cahill. If you haven't seen this man's beard, it is fantastic. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, if we could get to it, we will get to the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Our incredibly intelligent panel tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And Science Bob, I'm going to start off with you right off the bat, because you're the one with the background with Virginia Tech University. You have the background with being a part of some alphabet agencies, shall we say. When Tim's article came out, what was your thoughts? Because it was long awaited.
So I think probably those who been on Twitter and or those who follow Grant Cameron and Nicole know that Grant and Nicole interviewed me, and I mentioned that I had seen a picture of what looked like a triangle UFO out the canopy of an airplane, and that I knew that there was a report and a position paper running around the government. And that caused some controversy and hoopla, which calmed down a bit. And then Tim's article came out. I was glad to see that me talking to Grant and Nicole didn't end the article. The things that I would point out that are of importance is I'm glad to see the photo come out, because it was the photo I saw quite a while ago. And it was not exactly triangle shape, but it's close enough. And I said there were no lights on it, and there's no lights on it. So it's a strange beast, and there's a picture of it. Now, Tim's article has importance on multiple levels. Number one, he was allowed to name both the civilian and the uniformed leadership in both the Navy and the Air Force that are involved in UAPTF. He named the Office of Director of National Intelligence as being the overall coordinator for what is going to be UAPTF. And all of us are just really hoping that politics doesn't get in the way of the National Defense Authorization Act with the Rubio language in it going forward, so that some more stuff comes out and we get a report. And Rubio seems to be speaking for most of the people on the Intelligence Committee in saying that this stuff needs to come out. I'd seen interviews and seen articles and seen Navy publications and other things which let me know that there were a lot of people in the Navy that are unhappy there's been no action taken on dealing with these UAPs. I think Tim's article makes clear that they are taking it seriously. They've got kind of a lead role in that the Office of Naval Intelligence is the lead agency, with overall supervision being provided by the Office of the the Office of Director of National Intelligence will have overall supervision, but it looks like ONI is going to run the actual research. What that entails, I just don't know. We'll all have to wait and see, other than the language says there will be a report 180 days after the law is enacted. That means the law will give them budget, give them commands, and they will follow the commands. But again, I want to caution people, they're never going to publish results that might reveal capabilities that they don't want to confirm for our adversaries. Whether or not people can guess it, they're never going to confirm them. So if we have fancy satellites in orbit that are taking pictures, or we have fancy radars or fancy sonars or whatever that find USOs, UFOs, etc., fast walkers, all those things, they're not going to give us that data because it reveals capabilities to the adversaries of the United States. So Tim's article was important. It's important because it named names, and he clearly had inside sources, and they clearly encouraged him to bring stuff onto the record. And within a day, was it, of the article actually coming out on their new service, they gave him the picture and told him to release it. And that was exactly the picture I saw. And it had the details in it that I said it had in it. Okay, so, and the article, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm guessing, and we can ask Tim later, that when all that hoopla started, there was an addition made to the article, and it seems like there was. And the addition I would point out is there is a paragraph that deals with all of the hoopla. It says that they did an internal investigation, and they were very surprised to find that all of their deliberations, their passing around a position paper, etc., that photo, etc., had gone all over the government. They had no idea it had such widespread dissemination. To me, it is a miracle all that stuff had not come out long before now.
All right, let's bring in Sean Cahill, your first time on Spaced Out Radio, my friend, and we appreciate you doing this. You have a military background as well. You are a veteran. Thank you for your incredible service, and you've kind of been pushed into this entire UAP scenario as well, and want to say thank you for coming on the show tonight.
Oh, you're quite welcome. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's really an honor to be here with everyone. I won't spend too much time kissing butts, but you guys and girls are pretty amazing to me. The work that you've put into this is what I stand on when I speak to other people. It's the research that you folks have been putting into this for years and years and years that I'm brand new to, and I'm stealing from every one of you on a daily basis. to try to open up the conversation. So thank you.
Sean, as someone who has, you've been on television with this subject, you've done a lot of research, you were in the Navy and seen things yourself. When you see Tim's article, how much did that hit home for you?
It's a multi-pronged grand slam. Tim has a way of taking the state of play and the complex relationships that are the reality of this situation and giving us a snapshot of what people at the upper echelon and executive level actually know about this. And it doesn't look like they know very much. And that's something that we need to take note of. But the fact that these conversations are being had, these relationships are being revealed, and people want to have the conversation. Now, I know a lot of folks that have a military background aren't really jazzed about how much of this is being talked about around water coolers and in chat rooms on and off the SIPRNet. I was upset. I think a lot of people know in general at the impressions I was given when Bob and Grant and Nicole had their conversation. And what I was responding to was a perceived loss of trust. There are things that people are trying to talk about, and they're trying to make the conversations apparent to other people so that people can so that constituents can ask the right questions, so that military personnel and executives at higher levels can ask the right questions to get the information that they need. And I perceived that some of those relationships were damaged that day. Now, I think looking back, Tim's a hell of a diplomat, and I think that Bob was really professional in the way that he responded, and they quickly fixed things. I think that we have an opportunity here to really bring a lot of different people together. I have a lot of respect for Grant. It goes back a very long way to after the Tic Tac incident when I was researching things and trying to understand things that were going on. And I was on the night shift as a patrolman for years, and I used to listen to Art Bell and Coast to Coast. So I was familiar, even though I was a skeptic, with a lot of the people in the field. And a lot of Grant's research and the things that he's been courageous enough to expose himself to and to bring back and tell the rest of us about, those things are salient to this topic. Those things need to be brought to people in a wider audience. But a lot of people, I think, get confused when they're presented with some of those things early on to something that their perception, background beliefs, and even personal dogma is just for the first time really letting themselves see. So I see this as a lot of different things, because I have a lot of different interests in what we should be talking about as this subject moves forward and what my involvement is.
Well, we're looking forward to it as well. We bring in Grant Cameron here, the legendary researcher, White House UFOs, good Canadian kid. He'll drop the gloves with anybody on this subject. And Grant, there's a lot being said in this topic right now, especially regarding the names that have been named. There was a lot of controversy today around the photograph, which we will get into later on in the show. But for you, after all the years of research, what you saw today and this past week, has it made a difference in what we are trying to all solve?
I see it again. I wrote about this starting in 1991, this sort of gradual disclosure movement from people inside the government who are sympathetic or whatever's going on. So I saw this in terms of more of the same. I wasn't too surprised at what was happening. It actually happened the same week that Barack Obama started talking again, and his, I think, was very significant, his statement that, yes, he had looked into UFOs, nothing had been withheld from him, and it took a great deal of effort to get it out of the bowels of the agency. So to me, it's another step in the movement down the path that there are people inside the government who are sympathetic to this and who are bringing this out. So this photo doesn't just suddenly appear out of nowhere. Someone has to make some moves to do it. But it was actually Nicole Sakach's fault. I really didn't have nothing to do with it. I just did what I was told. She sort of picked up on this, and and we just sort of went with it because I really didn't know what was going on when this story first broke. I heard, that there was some sort of story that was going to drop, and as much as we got blamed by this, there was a bunch of people on the internet. I wasn't really following it, but I knew there was a bunch of people saying, "Oh, this is disclosure, and they're going to drop the bomb, and this could be disclosure and stuff." And I goes like, "What's going on this time?" And so we had heard that Bob had a story about a triangle, and that this might be something that was related to. And that's when I said, "Well, let's get Bob and let's talk to Bob, see what's going on here." So I had no idea that this had anything to do with the story that came out, but. I applaud Tim for doing this. I know this takes a lot of effort, and he's going to be probably in the same box as the Nimitz story, where he's going to be fighting off all the Twitter science people who don't read or can't read, and will give you in 60 seconds 180 characters on any subject you want, and you see the attack is already starting on the photograph. So it's going to go the same pattern. I feel sorry for him because he's going to be basically fighting this negative upstream bunch of people that are going to be criticizing this and that and the photo and this and it's that and it's all this kind of stuff, which sort of slows it down. But it's like everything else, whether it's African-American rights or gay rights or ufology, the more we talk about it, the more the consciousness rises. And in the end, the people will make the right decision.
All right, let's go to the leader of this crap storm who got it all going, Nicole Sakach, when you decided to interview Science Bob with Grant regarding this major UFO story, what it's turned into. Nicole, you saw the uglier side of UFO Twitter, you and Grant and Bob, in regards to that. Did you think that, that there would be so much backlash towards bringing out this story previous to Tim releasing this on the debrief.org?
Honestly, no. I think during the interview, I know we had quite a crowd once we premiered it, and Grant and I were also in the chat room during its premiere. And honestly, I thought we did a pretty good job of restraining our questions to the point where, I was excited. I thought maybe we were more on the supportive side of, hey, there's this story coming out by McMillan. This could lend support to it, without going over that edge of into scooping. It was never our intent to scoop a story, but I think the backlash on Twitter kind of resolved itself, and you had a hand to play in that. I think later that same night that our interview aired, you actually had a conversation with Tim McMillan, and you were able to kind of walk him through it a little better because he hadn't actually watched the interview or listened for himself what Bob had actually said, what we had asked, and so
that is true.
I guess the only thing I can say is that when you're in the public eye, like Grant and I are, and even you and Bob, when rumors or whispers of these things start coming out, you get asked by all of your followers and your fans and your friends, and they want to know what you know or what you think. And I think we were trying to do that for our audience, and I'm sorry that it got elevated to the level of maliciousness that it did there for a few days, but I'm glad that part's behind us.
Yeah.
So, can I make a comment?
Yeah, please.
Can I make a comment? Yeah. I pointed out to one of the people on the other side that was sort of criticizing us that at the same time this happened, I had a story that I had held for 3 years, and that was that the son of the producer of Batman and Rain Man and Color Purple, former head of Columbia Pictures, very famous producer in Hollywood, had come forward, had sightings and stuff like that. And the same time when we did this story, I found out the Third Phase of the Moon had gotten my story and had interviewed Chris Peters. So sometimes you hold the story and someone gets a hold of it, and that's the way it works.
And that's exactly it. And as a reporter and journalist myself, I've had that happen a number of times. And this is why I kind of came to the defensive, as Nicole pointed out, on Twitter with a number of people, because it was just one of those topics where this is where I had tweeted out that UFO Twitter and many people out there don't understand how the journalism game actually works. And that's okay. That's quite okay. But the big thing is, nobody was to blame here. And Tim, as I will go on the record, did talk to me after that happened. We talked for almost 2.5 hours this past Monday night, and it was a great conversation about absolutely everything. Now, I'm not going to talk about a lot of the stuff that him and I talked about because it is private, but when it came down to the story breaking the next day, I think that he had everything to gleam over. He had everything to gleam over, and he deserved the accolades that he is getting on that. As we got about 3 minutes to go here before we're going to go to break at the bottom of the hour, big-time UFO panel coming on. Sean, I want to ask you in 3 minutes here, when it comes to a lot of that fire and fury that we see on the internet regarding these stories, yes, it shows the passion that people have for this topic. We want news. We want to be a part of that excitement. But we also got to be able to hold the reins back a little bit, because any type of speck of information doesn't mean it's a full-course meal.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that I didn't actually jump in on the photograph today. For me as an investigator, with a lack of context, with not knowing what the previous 30 seconds in that pilot's experience was and what the post 30 seconds was, I can't make a determination. And I don't think it's too worth it for me to look at any photograph and make a complete determination. But I think that a lot of the folks out there, if they could just slow down a little bit, we're trying to set, and when I say we, I think all of us are finally trying to set a baseline that we can all agree upon. If we don't have a authenticity and scientific method and buy-in from academia on this going forward, we're gonna be stuck where we are now, or where we have been in the past. And so the greater exposure is really the goal here.
It really is, and I'm sure, Nicole, you would agree with that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Okay. And with that, go back to Sean here for a quick second. With that, do you think that how can I put this politely? You know, at some point we have to be able to just move forward without the social media. The work that is being done really isn't part of the social media aspect. It's really being done behind the scenes, trying to curate everything that's going on.
Well, I literally, Lou Elizondo and I were chatting this morning, and I said to him, the work doesn't get done on Twitter. Twitter is what happens when there's no work going on. And that's how that is for us. So when I'm on there chatting, that means I'm not out there getting things done.
And that's the main thing. Yeah, I spent most of my day on social media today. I never usually get to do that, but I actually did. And I know Science Bob, you were all over the place as well.
Yeah, well, so it's nice being retired.
I don't blame you. You know, we got about 30 seconds here, Science Bob. Quickly, your reaction to the way UFO Twitter has been in the last couple of weeks here.
Well, it's clear that people are listening, waiting pensively with bated breath for every little piece of information comes along. And if any part of the narrative goes counter to their hopes, they don't react well.
That's a very true statement. And let me add that if we're going to act as a unit, we got to take the good and the bad as a unit.
Yep.
I agree. All right, gentlemen, and the lovely Nicole, I'm going to get you all to hold on here for just a minute here, because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour on Spaced Out Radio. UFO panel. We have Tim McMillan's big-time UFO article. We're going to start hitting that head-on here on Spaced Out Radio with Bob McGwier, Sean Cahill, Nicole Sakach, and the legendary Grant Cameron right after this. All right. Hey, guys, I just want to let you know if you are new to this show, and I know we got a lot of people tuning in right now, maybe for the first time that you guys are here, you will be able to hear us speak during the commercial breaks. We are on commercial break for the sake of our radio stations, and so if you're wondering, oh, why are you guys speaking during the commercial break? Well, this is why. So you'll be able to hear the background. This is kind of what we do. It's kind of part of the fun part on our live YouTube feed, so thank you for tuning that in. Grant, Third Phase of Moon chimed in here stating that Chris Peters actually reached out to them, and they said they did not reach out to him. It was the opposite way around.
Yeah, but at the end of the story is they got the story. I've been sitting on it for 3 years.
Yeah.
Now I've done the interview and I've given you his access material, so it's a pretty big story. He's a pretty big guy. He's Barbara Streisand's stepson. He's a pretty big character in Hollywood.
Leslie Ann Warren's son.
Yeah.
Yes. Also dated the lovely and talented Sharon Stone.
Yeah.
Yes.
You like that part. You like that part of the story.
I am jealous. Come on. Who didn't have a crush after her after Basic Instinct? Every teenage boy in North America had a crush on her after that.
I'd already dated a girl like that. I knew better.
Did she hide scissors under the bed?
Close enough.
Hey, Sean, your audio keeps coming in and out a little bit. I'm not sure what's causing that.
I'm looking at I'm getting 2 bars on my phone, and I know I had it on Wi-Fi earlier. My wife was trying to help me out, telling me that I sound like I'm in a tunnel. So I'm trying to come up with a solution here. Yeah. I've got the nice AirBuds Pros and everything like that going on. So.
Oh, we'll just run with it. No big deal.
Okay. I'll see what I can do.
You're not inaudible, but so you're intelligible. So it's all right.
Oh, thank you. I'll go for a walk and see what I can find.
Hey, I want to say hi to Danny Silva in the chat room.
Yes, we thank.
Yeah, we dropped a nice thing.
Yeah, we thank the TTSA that Danny is here tonight. So thank you, Danny.
Yeah, Danny's got some news too.
Danny has some incredible news. He really does. Are you talking about the Kamala Harris not being read in?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. I read that last night. Ladybug Bigelow, Alaska's greatest athlete. The beautiful, talented Ladybug. Thank you so much for the awesome super chat. I really do appreciate you, my good friend. Thank you. And
Third Phase, Grant agreed with you. It wasn't your fault. You broke the story, and that was great. It was his fault that he sat on it for 3 years. Kudos to you guys.
UFO Contact, thank you for joining us. Once again, if you're new here, we are on commercial break for our radio stations that this will be edited up for, so I do have to do a little bit of timing out here for everyone. And so just be wondering, if you're wondering what the hell's kind of going on, you guys get to hear the whole behind-the-scenes stuff, that it does not go on the radio when we go onto the terrestrial side. So thank you. Thank you to Ladybug Bigelow, Cat Chaser, Fapster, Pro Illusionist, and Human Carl for the amazing super chats tonight. Really do appreciate the love and support. Yeah. Paul John Tavares, still no Stanley Cup for him. Welcome back. Gorgeous Teresa, good to have you here. MT, and appreciate you. And, yeah, go from there.
Dave, let me get a voice check real quick.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah. You're sounding beautiful.
Okay, good.
Could you break into a song for us, if you don't mind, Barry White?
Oh, Lord. You'll never find.
Oh, that's not bad.
Quite like mine.
Yeah, that's good.
Right there.
My voice falls into that theta range. You know, it's down there deep like a kick drum.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, we got about 40 seconds. Let's see, what are we doing here? Hey, Trax, good to have you here. Nicole Mesery, welcome to the show. I appreciate you. And Zachary Lancaster, thank you for joining us. And anybody else new in here I haven't mentioned? I think I'm caught up. 191 people. We could break a record tonight, everyone. 213 is the live record of this show. 213. And great way to support this show is hit that thumbs up, everyone, and shop at facebook.com/the SOR Vault. Here we go with the second half hour of the show coming right now. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate you taking the time. I want to remind you, if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We have the UFO panel going on right now. Science Bob McGwier is here, Sean Cahill, Nicole Sakach, and the legendary Grant Cameron. Everyone, welcome back. Bob, I want to start off with you on this one, okay, if you don't mind. It's in regards to the rocky relationship, if we could call it that, between not only Tim McMillan, but everybody in the UFO field and Susan Goff, who works in Washington, D.C. First off, explain to everybody who Susan Goff is.
Susan Goff is the public affairs officer, kind of the official spokesman for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So she works in the big boss's office for the JCS and the Secretary of Defense, and she's the public affairs officer. Her job is to be the official spokesman for the Pentagon. And I got to tell you, I can't quite make out exactly what her marching orders are. So I vacillate between she's being told to be deceptive and she doesn't know what's going on. And it might be a mixture of both.
Okay, so why does she continually deny, even though evidence is put right in front of her, do you think?
I think that's the knee-jerk reaction because it's been that way for 70-something years.
Well, I would have to say, though, that in my experience with public affairs officers are a tool of the power structure that wields them, whether it be an admiral, a captain, or the Joint Chiefs of Staff, for that matter. So she's probably constrained in evidentiary value or making determinations. That's not her place, regardless of how much evidence may be put to her. The question is, why is that what she's telling us?
I'm with Sean. I believe she is very highly constrained, and where she isn't given clear guidance, she's hyper-conservative.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Okay, so...
Can I make a point on that?
Yeah, please,
Let me make a point on that. Tomorrow I'm doing a presentation where I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that was leaked in the past. One of the key things that was leaked, and NIDS went after this, was the Holloman Air Force Base story. That was leaked by Bill Coleman, who was the public affairs guy for the Pentagon. So you can see them playing both sides. What's going in behind the scenes is, I think, much different than what's going on the surface. That's why I always think that behind the scenes, you have people who are making decisions to move stuff out and to run counter statements against each other and stuff to keep the confusion going. But the whole thing with Bob Emenegger, who ran the 1975 documentary UFOs Past, Present, Future, was that he was dealing with public affairs at the Pentagon, and he was given the Holloman Air Force Base film. He was given 8 seconds of that film, which actually was included in the documentary. And they are still in possession of a top secret film that James Fox actually went after. So there's two sides where they may be playing hardball at sometimes, and other times they're actually helping people to do documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
absolutely.
Okay, so how does that work? Do they just pick and choose who they want to work with?
Oh, no, not at all. I in my time as a security, as a chief petty officer, chief master of arms in the Navy working security, I didn't want to say security officer. That wasn't my position. I've dealt with PAOs. I've dealt with movie sets that came on base and had to film, and they deal with whom they're directed to deal with. Sometimes a PAO is going to be put on the spot and need to answer a question, and sometimes they may pivot in the wrong direction or they're. In this case, I think that I've seen some behavior that I didn't care for coming out of the public affairs office. The way that they have characterized people was unnecessary, and it was disrespectful, and I saw that as having personal leanings behind it. But I think when it comes to information and the public, it's just a question of what she's told to put out. And if she does pivot on something, she may not have a background in it whatsoever, because it looks like the executive level is only waking up to the idea that this is something that's not a joke.
Very true. Very true. All right, let's move on, though, because Tim hit some real hard baseballs with this one. And, Bob, I want to bring you back in here because you understand how this works probably better than any of us, being former alphabet agencies or being a part of them as well. But in a FOIA request, he was actually quoting a former admiral about advanced aerial threats on this. I mean, I think it's absolutely amazing to get Vice Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Robert Burke, on the record through the FOIA requests.
Not only that, we got told that Burke went to his peer in the Air Force and up to the both secretaries, and they're involved, and the Director of National Intelligence will be the overall control authority, the civilian authority over it. But both the Air Force and the Navy are playing in UAPTF, and the Air Force person was informed to go get the briefing when other people did. So I just think I think the article was kind of revealing of the minutia of how things work in a better way than almost any article I've seen in a while. And it's clear that what I saw going on is supported in Tim's article. There was a position paper being passed all around the government, along with all this evidence was being passed all around the government, and not all the evidence has come out. And while that is happening, different departments that have some control and or purview over what is going to be done, they make comments, and it goes around and around and around until it gets to the final authority on the release of whatever this position paper is, or dissemination of the final position paper. And I saw this process going on because people told me about it. I don't know where it ended up because, I retired in the sense that I got completely out of everything at the end of the academic year last May. But I could see these processes being reflected in what Tim wrote. And to me, what this says to me, I want to make it clear what this says to me. Tim has access to good information because he's a lieutenant, but he's a police lieutenant. So he is correctly reflecting how things work inside the government. That means he has access and is being informed.
Grant, your opinion on what Bob just said.
Yeah, I would agree with Bob. I mean, that's the thing. People get access, and for whatever reason, they know certain people, and people decide to talk to them. But in behind, there's always going to be some sort of okay given. It's a different world than it was even 10 years ago, where I think because of the 2017 New York Times article, the whole field has shifted, where it's no longer sort of this toxic issue that you can't really deal with. So, yeah, I agree that that there's some movement, and there's a dog. Big dog.
Big dog.
Yeah. Yeah. So Tim's done a good job, and he has some insights, and hopefully he runs with it, and hopefully he gets proper material that's put out. I just sort of feel sorry for the fact that there's going to be this real upstream section of ufology that's just going to be hammering this thing for the next, almost like the Nimitz thing, where it's still getting hammered.
Nicole, let's bring you in here. Tim did a lot of name dropping in this article, names that many of the public may not be very familiar with, but very prominent behind the scenes. Everybody from Dr. Hal put off to, like we said, the Admiral of the United States Navy as well. Okay, I mean, there's a lot of names in this entire article. I mean, this is the first time many of these names have even been mentioned. How important is it that we actually start seeing some of these names, even though we may not recognize them?
Well, generally speaking, I will say it is important. It's honestly, it's kind of astounding that these floodgates are kind of open. But honestly, I could backpedal that a little bit. It's not terribly stunning when you put it in perspective of just a year or so ago, or post Nimitz videos, post New York Times articles. We know the Navy kind of gave the okay that these things need to be reported on, and they did that with a new way of reporting on these incidences. And I don't think that was limited to just the military or just the Navy. I think that kind of opened the floodgates for the entire military to be able to report these phenomenon without risking their careers or being made fun of or a laughingstock, whatever you want to call it. So I can't really say that it's surprising to me in that sense. I think what we're seeing a little bit behind the scenes in the way the military is reacting to this, or the Department of Defense is reacting to this, is they probably didn't anticipate the floodgates to open this much. So they don't really know how to react to it in real time. It's real time when it goes across the Twitterverse in less than 12 hours. That's faster than anything we've ever had before. And I think when I read the article and saw all the names dropped and how well it was written and who was, contributing to it, I think that was special in that sense. But it leads me, Bob, I think you have outstanding credibility, and I know you have access, and we have just mentioned that Tim does too. But are the people reporting this, have they been in the field long enough, like other researchers have, to where they know how to investigate these videos? They know how to compare them to other sightings, or maybe civilian witnesses, as opposed to these, what I'll call fluffed up military witnesses. I mean, why are military witnesses' credibility put higher than a citizen's credibility?
I'd be happy to explain that.
Sean,
you can.
Sean,
I'm saying it bothers me.
I just mean as an investigator, as somebody who took witness statements for 20 years, if I can go validate via your chain of command your character in a shared environment where each person shares all the same values and understands what the rules of conduct are, we know each other. So a military witness, and a lot of people will ask me, well, what's a trained observer? Literally someone who's been trained to observe things, whether it's reconnaissance or troop movements or just attention to detail in a highly dynamic environment. Those people, for me, have a baseline of reporting that is unlike what I have been able to find at any time in the civilian world, regardless of the level of experience. So that's where that lies.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nicole.
I understand what you're saying, and I agree with that to an extent. But I think you can investigate a civilian's credibility just as easily and validate that they're not a crazy person, they're not this and they're not that. You know, I think that can be investigated along with other aspects. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is the last shred of my skepticism, and maybe this speaks to the little side of me that still doesn't trust entirely government entities coming forward with this. And the other thing I fall back on is, no, I know plenty of military guys who are not upstanding citizens. You know, I mean, look at the military guys that were involved in Abu Ghraib. Would you trust?
I didn't say anything about moral character.
I know. Nick.
I'm not talking about moral fiber. I said the ability to repeat what was observed.
Let me say, I want to support Sean in so far as when these military witnesses are debriefed about what they saw, it's at the same time they saw things, rather than I found a civilian witness who 6 months ago saw something and is now telling me with their diffused, delayed, and half-forgotten memories.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I want to turn the attention here because when Tim joins us in the next hour, we're going to be talking a lot about this photograph. This photograph that came out. Bob, you mentioned it right off the bat here. There is a big stir-up as to whether this is a Mylar balloon or whether this is an actual UFO type of aircraft. And Grant, I want to start with you on this one. What do you think that photograph is?
Well, it's not a Mylar balloon. I mean, I live in the coldest major city in the world, and I know that a Mylar balloon, you take it out of a store when it's very cold, will actually shrink before you even get it to the car. There's no way a Mylar balloon at 35,000 feet or whatever the altitude was is going to be intact. So, I mean, that's absolute nonsense. But I will agree with Nicole in regards to the military witnesses that I think if you had a civilian witness that had this type of photograph, I'm not sure you'd go forward with it. I mean, it has credibility because it's a military witness, but it's not exactly the greatest photograph in terms, and that's like why it's in this sort of trouble.
I agree. And Bob, I'm kind of holding off on you here, okay, because you have a lot of scientific background in understanding this. Nicole, earlier on, you and I both kind of watched Rich Giordano's Goof On, where he kind of broke it down like we don't know what kind of camera that photo was taken up. We know it was on a cell phone. We don't know if it was on an iPhone, an older one, a newer one, or any sort of great smartphone that is out there with a much better camera. We do have to look at that. We don't know the actual distance. We can't check the head-up display to see what altitude they were at. There's still a lot of questions around this, Nicole.
I agree, and you just pointed out, I think, the best ones right there, you know, along with, you know, what kind of lens was it? Was it a plastic lens? Was it a glass lens? Was he zoomed in with his, was it an iPhone? You know, was he zoomed in? Was he at normal distance? You know, whatever. But what I would like to add to it, I mean, we are floating out the word Mylar balloon. We all know those are the shiny ones that are with tinfoil, but I did a little bit of digging and contacted some people that I've been discussing this with on and off all day. And at any time in the United States, there's over 500 different kinds of balloons in the sky. Surveying balloons, spying balloons, weather balloons, what have you. And to lean back on what Grant just said about backing me up, you know, this photo, I just view it as risky. And Bob, I'm glad that you came forward and you're standing behind it. And I think that's great. But I want to know, did you see the zoomed in, like inset picture of this? Or did you see the original picture from the cockpit where you could see the cockpit through the window? And I don't know. I think, like Grant said, and I said to him earlier, if a civilian came forward with this picture, we would all be tearing it to shreds. As a researcher, if somebody gave this to us, we would not stake our career on this. I wouldn't put that out.
So
And
if I
specifically said all the things I thought were wrong with it. So
if I saw that picture from a civilian and they were taking it with their cell phone camera from the ground, I would call it a balloon. But what did we see? We saw it taken through the cockpit of a fighter jet, an F-18, and it's way above the clouds. It's 30+ thousand feet, and having a crappy cell phone camera makes it more likely it's not a balloon, because I think it was 1,000 meters away or more, and the picture was the one I saw. The one Tim released is the one I saw.
I think the credibility of this thing goes to Bob, that Bob saw it in classified channels and that people were discussing it. So, but the other problem they're going to have is everybody's going to be demanding, okay, who was the pilot? What was the distance? What was the altitude? And all that stuff, as far as I know, is not public. And that's where you get into the trouble of the anonymous source thing.
I think what else is causing confusion is the artist rendition that was in the original article that dropped on the second. And in that rendition, I know people asked you, Bob, is that what you saw? And it clearly had a triangle with the lights on each edge. It was smooth shaped, and you had answered yes. And to all comparison,
I never answered yes that is what I saw. I said I saw an object out the canopy, but it was not a triangle, and I did not see lights.
Okay, well then maybe I misread tweets or read too quickly. I thought you had agreed in general, yes, that was basically what you had seen. And I think like more of the confusion is that in the article, they do talk about another sighting with a smooth edged triangle. And this just creates confusion. And I don't know, I don't think it was purposefully to cause confusion, but I don't understand the artist rendition. I wish that would have just been left out of it entirely, I guess.
I think
I believe it's another incident.
Right. And I know another incident that was talked about, and I know it was even mentioned today in conversations that I had concerning the picture from today. Was this a craft that had one of these cubes around it? And can that cube be seen in the photo that we have? Or is that an entirely different scenario as well? So there's just a lot of information out there that is has murkied things.
Right. So can I make a comment?
Yes, please,
yeah.
Grant.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I believe it is exactly what they say it is. But in this world of UFOs where you get ripped to shreds, this is going to be a tough, it's going to get bogged down. That's all I'm saying. I don't doubt the photo is exactly what they say it is.
I agree. It's going to be slammed by UFO Twitter everywhere.
Not just UFO Twitter, but even the critics who do not want to cover this story on the mainstream side.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate considering the fact that we have to be able to take everything in control. I mean, it would be nice if we, in that photo, if we had the altitude of the aircraft. I mean, you could tell by the photo that it is obviously a two-seater. It would have been nice if the back-seater who took the photo had actually got the altitude. That would have been really cool in order to see that. Gentlemen, and Nicole, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour here on Spaced Out Radio. 1 hour down, 2 hours to go. Huge UFO talk tonight. We're going to try and hook up with Tim McMillan from the Debrief.org, who wrote this amazing article on UFOs, naming names, photographs, operations. We are also joined by Grant Cameron, Sean Cahill, Science Bob McGwier, and Nicole Sakach. We continue on with the panel right here on Spaced Out Radio. Hour 2 next. All right, we're going to call Tim in right now. He's up. He's up. No huge debates here. Hey, Joe Mergia in the chat room. You're so much weaker ever since you got a haircut. All right, just waiting for... There he is. The lovely and talented Tim McMillan is here. There he is, looking gorgeous.
He's awake now. He's awake.
All right, guys, I got to quickly run my dogs outside. You guys chat away. Remember, we are live on YouTube right now. Don't go into anything juicy until we get back, please, and thank you. Your chin hair looks fantastic, Tim. Just fantastic.
Oh, thank you. I said it's early for me. I'm not awake yet. But...
I'll be right back, guys.
So you're getting up in the morning? Is that what is happening?
Yeah, no, it's 7 a.m. here in Germany. So yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Just woke up. It was a late night, and so. Anyway, I'll be wide awake here in a minute.
There you go.
Great article, Tim.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean.
Incredible. Just incredible.
Thanks, man, and it's good to finally get a chance to chat with you. I know our paths keep crossing, but great work yourself, man. I love seeing your stuff on Twitter and everything else, man.
Thank you. You took a mess and you made it coherent.
Yeah. Tried. It's I don't know. It's hard to get it coherent. I don't have a coherent picture. I don't know anybody does. So,
I think you have more than most.
Yes, sir.
It's
I think everybody else is kind of like me. They have rumors and see a thing or two at best, and that's it. And it'll be good when some more official stuff comes out.
Oh yeah. No, I agree.
And Tim, you know folks are impressed where you got to.
Well, that's good. And it's tough. I've just realized you have to kind of block out the quote UFO community to an extent because you can't make people happy. But you know,
you can't. Well, you can't. Yeah, I think just like a musician can't think about their audience the entire time they're writing a song. They got to think about themselves and the heart of the matter. Yeah.
Yeah, that was because I know a lot of people were disappointed with the picture that got released yesterday, and I'm like, man, I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, we're just that's what was there. You know, I can't editorialize it, but it's interesting.
Tim, can I ask? Did you see the photo before you got it released to you, like yesterday?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So you've seen it a couple days ago or a couple weeks ago or whatever.
Yes. No. Yeah. I've seen it. Yeah. Back when I first heard about the reports.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, it's that's one of the things I always stress. Like, I'm not a UFO quote investigator or researcher. Like, there's a lot of great people in the field that do that, and so. I'm happy to try to uncover information, but then it's on to somebody else to kind of examine it. I'm sure the coming days and weeks you're going to have people poring over it and really doing all sorts of video enhancements.
You're not going to be the only person reporting to us from now on. You're not the only one.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You don't bear the burden of all of ufology.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tim's the hockey player. He's our UFO goon. He's dropped the gloves on ufology here.
we solved the whole thing while you were gone, Dave.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. I'm glad. I'll thank Doug and Shadow for that.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad somebody knows what's going on because I don't. I mean.
All right. Let me just see here. How you doing there, Sir Tim?
I'm doing good. So, we don't have to do video, right?
No, you can cut that out, man. Your hair looks fantastic, though. You look like you put a little Brill cream in there.
Dude, I did. You know how it is, man. That's just that's just left over from last night. I've been doing interviews and stuff, and I just I've stayed here. I've been here since last night. But thank you. It's not nearly as stunning as the stately beard that you have there.
Oh, I don't know. I feel very, very small and pathetic next to Sean Cahill here. I do.
Why do you cut your hair, man? You obviously regret it. You're always talking about the rest of us.
No, you know what? To be, and this is absolutely blunt. Absolutely blunt. The reason why I go off on the whole hair and beard thing of people is because literally, it's one of those things that kind of eases the tension on everything.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm just busting chops.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but there's a lot, believe it or not, I get that, like I'll get that on Twitter or something like that. What's with your fetish with hair or beards or something like that? Really, I don't have one. It's just a matter of, it's like our password that we do. The password, I mean, we always say, what's the password for? And the answer is exactly. What's it for? It means nothing, but we do it just because we can, right? Right. Hold on, gentlemen. Nicole, we got 15 seconds. Big thanks to Linda, Vinny, Ladybug, Cat Chaser, Fap, Pro Illusionist, and Carl for the super chats. Here we go, everyone. Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is coming up right now.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. And on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate earning your listening ears tonight. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Heteroceous. Heteroceous is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. We continue with our special UFO panel tonight as we have Sean Cahill, Nicole Sakach, Grant Cameron, Science Bob McGwier. We are now joined by the man of the week, all the way from Germany, parts unknown, weight unknown. He's wearing a wrestling mask tonight. Tim McMillan is here, and he is hanging on out with us. And Tim, we appreciate you joining this panel. You are the one who is literally on top of the world in UFOs, knowing what's going on. We appreciate it. And before we continue on, I do want to say, Tim, this is only the third time in the history of this show that I have actually bumped a guest because of the importance of the subject. The first one was when the first two were when Art Bell passed away and Stanton Friedman passed away. And I thought this article was so important that I actually had to bump our guest to do this immediately with this show. So thank you for doing this with us and joining us tonight.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Dave. And now I feel bad. I don't want to bump anybody. And I'm certainly, by no means, I mean, I appreciate everything you said. I certainly don't, I cannot compare with Art Bell and Stanton Friedman, though, by any means. So please, please don't anybody think that. But I appreciate what you had to say there. And yeah, I hope it looks like pretty good response from the article. Hopefully people liked it. So,
well, I mean, you literally sent the internet into an uproar here, both in the mainstream media, on the alternative media side, and UFO Twitter is now battling on whether or not you have another photograph. I mean, you got one photograph out today. And, you know, full disclosure to our audience, you and I were talking last night, early morning for you, about, 22 hours ago, and all of a sudden you were like, Dave, I got a text, and something big's happening in the morning, I got to go, and I was like, I bet you, I remember thinking, I bet you he's got a photo. I bet you he's got a photo. I never asked you, we never talked about that, but here it is. You got one photo of the two that is out. What's the importance of this photo?
Yeah, the photo that we released yesterday that's one of the photographs that was contained. If you read the article, that's one of the photographs that went out with a intelligence report that was issued by the UAP task force, and it was taken in 2018. So this is something that went out widely disseminated, actually, to not only the U.S. intelligence community, but it went through NSA Net. And so it went to the Five Eyes, our allies there in Canada, and the UK, right? Australia and New Zealand. And so this is, there's a lot of little Easter eggs and everything we found there that it's hard to just in one article expand upon. But this is, I think, for me, that was one of the things I was extremely impressed it got picked up on so quick, and I was impressed in terms of the work that the task force was doing. So we now know that it's not just the U.S. holding it in house; they're having conversations with their allies. They're sharing information, and so the photo that we put out yesterday is a photograph that was captured by the backseat weapon system officer with his cell phone, personal cell phone, of an object that they included in an intelligence report. That it is categorized as unidentified aerial phenomena. So, the photograph itself, I think superficially it's not going to blow you away. It's not going to make your uncle at Thanksgiving who gives you a hard time all of a sudden go, oh, you're right, UFOs are real. And assuredly there's a lot of context behind that photo that even I'm unaware of. There's obviously details that led to them categorizing that as unidentified. But that is the photo. And I think, I think that's the photo, Bob, you had seen previously. And I think it had leaked out and kind of circulated a little bit.
Yes.
And I think that's where, I think it was eventual to come out, but we're glad that we could quasi-officially bring it out. So, because I think a lot of people had heard about it or seen about it, now it can be discussed.
Okay, there was allegedly a second photograph, and you guys have an artist recreation of it, where it shows a black triangle coming out of the Atlantic, I believe, and you provided an image by Dave Beatty in regards to this, and apparently this happened within the last 12 months. Did you have the opportunity to try and get that photo out? Because I think that's the smoking gun that everybody wanted, but there's also a security side to this as well.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. And glad you brought that up, because I'm glad to clarify that. The photo that was released yesterday is a completely separate and different photo than what is described. It's coming out in a intelligence report in late summer, September of this year. And indeed, the kind of recreation that Dave did a phenomenal job on there is the best recreation of the photo itself. And indeed, in this instance, you're talking about a very clear photograph of a triangular object with three white lights that, interestingly enough, I think there's a great number of accounts over the years of this exact same type of graph or whatever it is. But yeah, no, obviously we would love to get that photo out. But like you mentioned, that photo, and in fact, those reports themselves are they're classified, and they're contained on classified systems. They're transmitted through classified systems. The actual classification of that photo that I'm talking about, I truly don't know. But indeed, to be able to share something like that potentially risk somebody's career and or freedom, that it is classified. And so, yeah, as much as I do hope it comes out. I do hope we all get to see it. I do hope it's put out there for everybody. But it's kind of difficult to ask somebody to, it's illegal if I start directly soliciting any kind of classified information. Suddenly I go from being a journalist to espionage. And I can see you nodding your head like, maybe it's worth it. But that's a tall order to ask for. And so I'm always very, I tell people I don't report on UFOs or report on the defense and national security industry that happen to be interested in UFOs. And so I'm very respectful kind of those boundaries while trying to do anything and everything I can so that the public, not just the American public, but the public at large is able to make, they're able to make an informed decision about what is going on with UFOs, what is going on with these objects, and is it something that, needs more scrutiny and study. I think that's kind of the role of what you're supposed to do as a journalist. Right. I do hope it comes out, but you're absolutely crystal clear that is not, the photo that we released yesterday is not the same photo that, quite frankly, took the intelligence community, not just in the United States, but in the Five Eyes by storm.
Right. Tim, before I get the panel into, because I know they have some questions, comments that they want to make as well, in regards to the information that you were putting out regarding the photos and everything, what was the backlash like from the intelligence community, considering that they had all seen the photo, which was a little odd, from what I'm hearing, a little odd that so many, like we're talking hundreds of intelligence members got these photos. That seemed a little out of the ordinary. So was somebody trying to get this to you or get this out in the public? Is that why there's this big stir up?
Well, and I think Bob will be able to answer some of this because he's had a career and some connections there and extents. And even Sean, who's held classifications can know that, can probably speak on it as well, just as well as I can. But it was odd in terms of the fact that these reports were disseminated very widely. Now, I think that's a salient point to make is why. And, did the UAP task force do this because they wanted to get that information out? Now I'm going to give my opinion and not say it as fact because I don't know factually, but yes, but that doesn't mean they wanted to get it to me. It doesn't mean they wanted to get it to whomever. It's more so that you don't disseminate something to not just hundreds, but thousands of analysts. And not realize that at some point that information is probably going to leak out. You see that in news stories every day. If you think about the Russian bounty gate, or just recently that you had Iranian nationals following defense officials, information leaks out, and the more cooks in the kitchen spoil the soup. And so you realize that, but at the same time, do I think that means that they wanted to get out in the public as much as they wanted to get out, in my opinion, to as many people as possible that this is a real issue that really needs scrutiny and really there's something going on here. And so I think it's a double-edged sword. If it gets out in the public eye, hopefully the public will support the efforts of what's going on there more. And B, I think it also garners and facilitates support within the intelligence community, within the defense community. Because at the end of the day, I think, it's like any other intelligence issue or any other issue, you have to have support of all these analysts and everything. And you want to make sure that when you have analysts who are working on problems completely unrelated to UFOs, if they come across information as they're working their projects, they realize, oh, wait, this could be important to that person, this person. I mean, as weird as it is, it's a very clandestine, quiet, and secret world, yet they are entirely dependent upon being able to share information with each other to put pieces together, because very rarely does one person have the puzzle.
Right. Grant, I know you wanted to ask a couple of questions.
No, I really don't have one. I'll just give you one. In terms of the task force, we hear all this stories about Trump hasn't been signed off, the 180 days. Do you have any insight on that as to whether this thing will get the 180 days or whether it's going to go, or are they using money from elsewhere, or how's the task force working right now?
I mean, to the best of my knowledge, I'm not familiar with anything about President Trump needing to sign off on. I would just say in terms of what everyone told me they saw with these reports, it was very evident that work was being done or is being done. and in addition to the fact that I heard subsequent to those reports that you now have, I honestly don't know what the correct term would be, so I'm going to use kind of a colloquial chat rooms and message boards that are classified, in which you have analysts that can gather together and discuss, analyze, and actually examine this topic. For a lot of people, considerable, everyone I spoke to that were willing to discuss any details of those reports or the UAP task force work all said that this was unprecedented to them, that they had never been involved in anything like this. They'd never seen it disseminated this far and wide. So, I haven't heard anything about 180 days. I haven't heard anything about that President Trump needs to sign off on anything. I think my opinion, this doesn't come from anybody I talked to, but just examining the general feeling, I'm not sure that President Trump really puts a lot of thought in this topic. I'm sure he's been briefed, but I think that he finds other issues insignificant, important, which, that's fine. That's why we have elections. That's why we have a democratic system where if, the American, and that's what I keep saying, if the American people aren't happy with the response by their elected leaders, we'll say something, do something. And, but yeah, I think that it's there. Is there a huge budget? Is it what one person said? Is it like kick-ass task force program where you're thinking of like the Special Operations Command? At this point, no. But I was impressed. It's not just a couple of guys sitting around a desk and or the water cooler and meeting at lunch to talk about UFOs. It's
right.
Much more formal than that.
Right.
You've been doing this for a little while. Can you say that there's been a change, say, since the 2017 New York Times article, where things are actually seem to be moving now, rather than before it seemed to be like a constant cover up? And
no, absolutely, absolutely. And there's a lot of information I can't wait to. I mean, hopefully be able to put out, and that has nothing to do with wanting to hold it back and like. But there's people I've spoken with going back to even 2017. So before people like Luis Elizondo came forward, anybody knew who he was, or this ATIP even existed, who I've been fortunate to kind of track down and speak with, but they either work in government positions now or they work in positions where and anybody who's worked in government realizes you're not supposed to talk to the media and you're not supposed to be out there. So they talk on background or they talk off the record. But in hearing kind of how things were, let's say, December 2017, that the difficulty to get briefings that they weren't going on and people were being informed, but the reason that, let's say, at the time Secretary of Defense Mattis wasn't being briefed, those reasons are really mundane and pedestrian, but they weren't happening. Fast forward, and especially that was the emails that we got via FOIA. I mean, I was blown away when you're seeing the Vice Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Navy not only being briefed, but then recommending the Vice Chief of the Air Force get a briefing, and the Secretary of the Navy. I mean, that's the highest levels of the U.S. military. Obviously the Joint Chief themselves would be the top of that, but it's like any other organization. The CEO isn't the guy that's on boots on the ground operational. They're just the guy whose butt is on the line. So the highest levels that are able to do anything in operational are being briefed about it. That may have gone on in the past, but I'm not aware of any evidence like that in the last, since the closure of Blue Book, maybe,
Right. Science Bob, I know you want to get a couple questions. We got about 5 minutes before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour here.
Tim said some important things that I believe I can help our audience understand. So there's a bill called the National Defense Authorization Act. That bill has not been signed into law. So in that bill, Senator Rubio put this intelligence language that will stand up a formal line budget for UAPTF. They swept unused money at the end of the fiscal year, and the UAPTF is running on that. But they need to be a line item in the budget to go forward. President Trump is threatening to veto the NDAA because of other things in it that he doesn't like. We'll just have to see how that gets resolved, and we hope it gets resolved in a way that Senator Rubio's language gets done so that we get this. The other thing that I feel is important is Tim has correctly characterized kind of this stuff being passed all over the place. And what do we know from that? We know that the paper he's talking about and the photograph or photographs he's talking about are being passed around for comment all over the government. That's to make sure that when they release a statement that says, we don't know what this is, and it's possibly of extraterrestrial origin, no one has objected to that. They are all in agreement that they don't know what it is, it's not U.S., and it's possibly of extraterrestrial origin. That had to go all over the government and get chopped off, signed off. This is how it works. And I just feel this is an extremely important occurrence because it says it's gone all over government, and they're telling the public that we see things that we have no idea where they're from, they're not ours, and we don't believe they're our adversaries.
There we go. There we go. Now, Bob. Sorry, Tim, please.
No, I was just going to say, yes, thank you for clearing that up, Bob. And I apologize, Grant. My mind was not even thinking about that Intelligence Authorization Act. And now it makes total sense. I'm glad you recognize that, Bob, that, yes, in terms of what the president needs to sign off on and the national defense budget. Yes, what Bob said is accurate. I apologize when you first said it. My mind was thinking, I'm not awake yet. But, yes, I was just going to say thanks to Bob for clarifying that because, yeah, that is exactly what you're referring to.
I want to bring in Sean Cahill. We got 2.5 minutes here, Sean. I know you want to chime in here on some stuff as well of what you've learned and probably want to ask Tim a question or two.
Well, I'm a big fan of the UAPTF and what it stands for and what they're trying to do going forward. Tim and I have a similar understanding. And I'm going to keep harping on this word baseline. We've got a 70-year investigation, and we're still beating around the bush establishing that this is a 70-year investigation by the government. And I don't use the word government as an umbrella usually that lightly, but we're going to have to dig this out of places. This is not the easy task that a lot of people think it is, and it's going to take time.
Yeah. Tim, Nicole, let me let you jump in here if you want. Nicole still with us? She got her mic on mute again. All right.
I probably don't have enough time to jump in.
Well, then I guess it's just you and me, Tim. Just you and me right now. But
no.
But Tim, you've also taken a lot of critical heat over the last 48 hours regarding the article. A lot of people saying that this was just a pump up for your new program with MJ Banias and Micah Hanks, two formidable gentlemen in this UFO crowd as well, in regards to you guys are, coming out with this just to pump up your own socks a little bit with your new website, the debrief.org. Just curious how you battle those comments. We got about 1 minute.
You try not to battle them, and that's because, there's the truth, and then there's kind of the inflation of what and belief, and the belief of it is we started that program, and maybe when you get back I can talk about it more because I'm trying to rapidly fire it out there. But the criticisms are going to be there, and I think overly the criticisms I've seen have been that we didn't prove, we didn't bring disclosure, and all I can say is, I worked my butt off to bring whatever was possible that I feel like is the most crystal clear, factual truth that we have at this moment. And investigations don't stop; they continue. But I'm not going to say anything that I think isn't supported by evidence, and I don't feel confident, or I wouldn't testify to in the court of law, under oath. And so, I'm sorry if it's not.
Yeah, Tim, I got you. Hold you right there. We have Tim McMillan, Bob McGwier, Grant Cameron, Sean Cahill, Nicole Sakach, and some bearded guy talking on the microphone. That would be me. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. All right, everyone, we're clear?
Yeah, I want to let you know, Dave, you and Sean are the reason that I shave my beard, because I cannot grow a manly beard. You guys. And Bob.
Look at this crap.
If you saw the moon-faced fool that I am without it, you'd know why I'm wearing it.
Well, I those who saw me last year, I tried, and then I just was like, I think I saw a picture of myself, and I was like, gosh, I look like like a 15-year-old trying to grow a beard here. So it just paled in comparison to you gentlemen. So I'm envious.
My comment on your question to Tim is, of course he's trying to promote his new endeavor. He's got to make a living.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one thing is we're promoting the endeavor, but we definitely, I tried very, very hard not to inflate information. You want to be ethical. You want to be ethical, right. But you got to promote it. Yeah, well, I mean, that's why I don't begrudge. Me and Dave had this conversation. I don't begrudge anybody for, who wants to cover this topic, and our intent is not to cover this topic solely, but anybody who does that tries to earn a living doing it. I mean, you have to. If not, how you can't do it. I mean, if you want to dedicate the kind of attention to it, I'm in a fortunate position because my wife is a kindergarten teacher for the DOD, but she works for the DOD and we're overseas, and Uncle Sam takes care of his overseas employees. So I'm kind of afforded. It's been nice to be afforded the opportunity that I can spend more time on it and not have to worry about jumping out and getting back on the grind and going back in policing or anything like that. But if it wasn't for that, I'd have to do like a lot of people and side hustle this stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think people get upset because everybody has their image of what quote disclosure is. I don't know what it is. In my mind, if disclosure is acknowledgement that there are mysterious objects in our skies that exist, well, that's happened, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
The government acknowledging that. I mean, that's happened. I don't know. If there's Roswell bodies and wreckage and everything else, I think it'd be cool if somebody rolled it out. But I don't know. I definitely haven't gotten anywhere close to that. But there's a lot of great people investigating this field. I prefer to sit back and watch.
Absolutely. And we got a lot of new people tuning in tonight. Just so you know, we are on a commercial break for our live radio show stations right now. This is not a podcast. This is a live radio show that will eventually go into podcast form. So everything you guys are hearing right now is off the air, off the record, that will not go into our radio stations that are actually covering us. And we'd appreciate it if you guys love what we do or you're enjoying this, your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that thumbs up. We really could use the support. We're trying to get 10,000 followers by the end of the year, and we're almost there. We need like 550 more. And that's my kiss ass for the day. I do have to say that. That is my kiss ass for the day. So we appreciate it. Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're good there. Everyone having fun? Everyone having a good time?
Oh, yeah.
Loving it.
I'm waking up more now. Yeah, I like it. And Sean, I love what you brought up about trying to get everything kind of in a more focalized place. I know, I'll give you an example from being in law enforcement. I will tell you, this is bar none, we absolutely had people call and try to report UFO sightings to us. I mean,
you're right, yeah.
Mm-hmm. We had no means of reporting that or doing anything with it. Mm-hmm. So it went unreported. Or if it did, it went into what's just termed a miscellaneous incident, which just sits in a file somewhere.
I had it. I just want to tell you guys, because you just kind of triggered me there. A few of you know about the story that I've been following over the last couple of years about how the Royal Canadian Mounted Police act towards towards UFOs, and I was told by an officer that all reports go to NORAD. I had that officially confirmed today by a person who works in Ottawa.
You're supposed to say that on the air.
Yeah,
good job.
Yeah, no, I got I'm leaving it right there because I'm going to write a story on this. You know, every now and again I do write a blog. You know, if people want to check it out. We got 25 seconds here, everyone.
Yeah, you could stir it up, and then I would promote it, and you would get a bigger audience when it finally comes out.
Thank you, Grant Cameron. Thank you, Grant Cameron.
And I know an outlet you could possibly publish that in if you were interested.
Well, I'm not going to lie. My nipples are getting hard here, but we're going to continue on here. Thank you to everybody for the super chats tonight. And don't forget to do a little shopping at the SOR Vault, facebook.com/the SOR Vault. Here we go. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. I'm the guy who apparently controls this show, and we're doing a good job to it tonight as well. I want to say thank you to everybody. Reminder that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue with our UFO panel tonight. Sean Cahill, Nicole Sakach, Science Bob McGwier, Grant Cameron, and Tim McMillan are here talking about the great article that Tim just wrote about UFOs in the United States. Is it real? I learned something tonight that I did not know, that there were 5 different agencies and countries that were brought into this entire forum. And Tim, you know that I am very, very concerned with, you know, what happens up here in Canada regarding this entire subject. So that kind of gives me a little bit of a lead as I'm trying to work on this story from this end as well. But when it comes to the whole aspect that you were able to name names, Tim, you were able to put people on record. This is very, very difficult, including retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General Bruce McClintock. Why are people like Brigadier General McClintock wanting to talk about this subject now?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure that he was wanting to. I had to track him down, but I think he recognized, I mean, that's one of the nice things for me with the whole UAP task force and the fact that the DOD has made this more official is when I speak to somebody or the ability to reach out to somebody like General McClintock, there's a less of a ridicule factor because, you know, when I ask, just recently I interviewed a NASA scientist and I can say, hey, what do you think about the DOD's UAP thing going on? You know, it's not silly to people like that. And so, you know, I think I included a paragraph of, you know, General McClintock's background. I could have, you know, I encourage people to go look at his DOD official bio page and see, you know, this is a gentleman. I tried to find somebody who had just a wealth of background that could have touched and talked on any of it. And that to me was one of the most, I was most proud of. I thought it's weird is being able to report on those intelligence reports was obviously significant, but to get General McClintock on the record, you know, somebody who was the deputy commander of NORAD, deputy commander of Space Command, current head of RAND Space Enterprises, the defense attaché of Russia, I could keep going, but him willing to say the likelihood that, well, first of all, the likelihood that this was U.S. classified technology. I mean, he was just really dismissive of that. I mean, and going down the list of where every time I've talked to anybody inside government goes, which is, it's always very pragmatic in that they go down the list of logistics, budget, policy, and going, there's just no way. Like all of the red tape and things that would be involved in that. And then to say very accurately that this idea, you know, that it could be foreign technology, China, Russia, you know, he's, in my opinion, 100% correct. that idea is kind of, the fact that you would see these things probing the continental United States, if they were Russia or China, is just, there's not even a policy and procedures in place for a government to ferret your own air defenses where they're flying over your nuclear facilities within 100 feet, or, the risk of that in terms of losing some type of technology if you had it, or B, if you crashed that into a neighborhood in Omaha, you're talking about an act of war. And so that kind of risk, you just wouldn't see it. And unless any of our adversaries are hiding some sort of massive cyborg army underground that would be capable of invading not just the continental United States, but our good close friend and neighbor ally, Canada, all of these things that would have to happen, that's not in anyone's defensive plans. And so, it was nice to get somebody that has that background, that spent over 30 years of their life in this world. These are things that they have to think about, and them say, look, it's not us. And he was accurate. Go ahead, Sean.
Can I chime in? I think it's salient. I've got a really good friend of mine, and I don't usually talk about anonymous sources and stuff like that because it's not my shtick, but he's a retired Master Chief Petty Officer who was on boomer submarines up around the Arctic Circle during the 80s. And when he found out what I was doing and saw the show, he came out and visited me, and we had some conversations. And when we finally got down to the nitty-gritty of it, he said to me, Sean, we tracked these things coming over the poles back in the 80s, and we tracked them when I was young back in the 70s and wasn't in charge. And we were told to log it and dog it. And what that means is you don't actually write it in the log. You just skip over it and keep going, because nobody knew what to do with it. And when he reached the level where he was chief of the boat, it was still something where you just ignored it. Nobody knew what these underwater fast movers were and what the things that were in the air were. And so it's always been a question of, was there someone around who did care? And it looks like when I was on Princeton, someone did. It looked like the people on Nimitz did. And so this, again, brings up, is UAPTF going to be able to tell us the history of this subject within the U.S. government? And does the UAPTF currently know the history of this subject within the U.S. government? Because these were not Chinese assets. These were not Russian assets. These were not any comparable known DNA set, local geopolitical anything. So, and I think we're finally seeing that. The rational players are saying, we do not know what this is.
So I think this audience knows that I spent some time on a submarine. So it was the USS Hampton, and I will not be saying what I was doing, but I was on there. And it's been a fair amount of time, and those things have unbelievable capability, which is classified. But things were heard that violate the understood laws of fluid mechanics.
Non-cavitating amazingness.
Things cannot move that fast in an incompressible fluid. Water at those speeds is incompressible. It's like running into a brick wall. And these things are moving so fast, you can't believe it. And they're not cavitating. They're just moving, screaming. And they're just crazy. This stuff needs to be investigated. This is the reason I'm saying the Navy is determined to get to the bottom of something.
Absolutely.
Greg Cameron, I want to bring you in here for a second, because there's a lot of people on Twitter today, and including Manish in our chat room right now, who are, for some reason, they were saying that you were going to release some photo today.
I was going to do it today. I'm going to do it tomorrow. This is we're having this panel. I'm doing a panel of triangle sighting people, 20. We have authors and military people and people who had triangle sightings. And so in terms of time, I've cut myself out. Some of the bigger stories, like the Phoenix Light story, we did a special interview with Lynn Katai. But I'm going to release 3 photos. They're in my book that I wrote about Charlie Red Star in 1975. So there's 1, 2, 3 photos and a video that was released in 1975 in a documentary that was given by the U.S. government. And I'm sure I'm going to run into the same thing as all UFO photographs. Everybody attacking, and that it's a balloon, it's dust, it's whatever. So that'll happen tomorrow afternoon.
Awesome.
Cool.
And it's just my triangle story. I had a triangle sighting in 1976 over top of the car with 5 witnesses, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police came up 30 seconds after, so he saw it as well. And that's basically, I'm going to tell my triangle story.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Tim, where do you go from here regarding this? I mean, you have so many different angles in this latest article. It's hard to just forge with one. But what's the next step? What has to come out next?
Oh my gosh, what does have to come out next? I don't know. I wish I had that answer for you. I mean, that's one of the things is, especially, let me just say with our new outlet, the Debrief, we've been pointedly cleared there that this is not a UFO site. We're not. There's some great researchers out here, Grant, being one of them, that we're not competing in that space, and so there's people out here that analyze this and know so much more than we do, and we will continue to try to bring out credible, best available evidence as it comes up, especially when it goes in regards to what the UAP task force or the U.S. government is doing, and that's really because that's where my bread and butter is and my background is. That clearly does not mean that the U.S. government owns the UFO topic, nor do they own the issue by a long shot, but that's just where my background is. So, I will continue to try to chip away there. Assuredly, even in these reports, that the intelligence reports, that we just reported on, there's a wealth of information that wasn't shared and wouldn't be shared in those reports because of the wide distribution. And I'm sure Bob, can kind of say, recognize this as saying, yeah, no, that's true, is that there's going to be more classified information that's at a much higher level, that's going to be more compartmentalized, that's not going to go wide distribution like that. And that's going to be where your most sensitive sensor systems are. And like Bob just mentioned, and I'm sure, Sean, you're familiar with this too, when you're talking about naval assets, you're talking about underwater assets in particular. This is uber classified, uber classified.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be difficult,
right? And
it's going to take some kind of respectful reporting there because those assets and everything that I'm aware of that's been capturing any data, they weren't designed to hunt UFOs. They were designed to protect the U.S. and its allies, and so, there's a reason that they classify that stuff. And so that's going to make it difficult, I think. But the underwater aspect is fascinating. You'll probably see me go into that area a lot more. I shared a quote. It was only about a paragraph in there, but very fortunate to have reached out to a longtime family friend and really close to them long before the UFO subject. And that was when they, gave me that very brief that, yes, there have been detections of extremely fast non-cavitational objects underwater. I'll just say that is somebody who 100% would know.
Let me chime in with you on that, because what you're talking about is super important, because with the stigma, I believe the stigma has been removed. I really do believe that we stand on that precipice. I think that Tim's article was something that made this an incredibly serious topic, that people are going to be digging in that article for a very long time, pulling the jewels and the gold of what this actually means when you sift it out. But having removed the stigma, we can now move forward to say that we have to understand that where the military is interfacing with the phenomenon is, like Tim said, around highly classified systems. And that's where the unfortunate aspect of a threat narrative comes from. What do they want? What are they looking at? What are they interested in? And why are they running circles around us? So there's 1,000 questions that are going to end up keeping a lot of this away from what people are going to be expecting, but I think we can look forward to the UAPTF trying to bring us clarity where it can. I also think that there are efforts out there, and I'm going to plug them. Skyhub, who I'm helping out in a few ways, that are really trying to look at this pragmatically and say that if we don't think that we can pry this information out of the black hole of the last 70 years of compartmentalized investigations, then let's just have open, candid conversations and go repeat the damn data ourselves.
Yeah. There's that, and let me emphasize another thing that Sean certainly knows. Underwater sensors are classified. We can say that there's sonars, and that's about as far as you can go. You can't characterize it or say anything about it. But the underwater sensors are sonars. And Sean knows, and I know, that it was hundreds of hours of analysts scouring that cell phone photo that Tim left out to make sure there was no revealing of any classified system in that photo before it ever saw the light of day.
We are a gun-shy constituency who has been sold BS for a long time. That's not the people I'm working with.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you could say that about the public too, though.
Well, sure. I mean, we are the public. We humanity, the United States of America. It doesn't matter to me. I have an interest in our national security. I took an oath. I'm still part of the Fleet Reserve. These things matter to me. But I'm a person. I'm a human being. And this affects all of us. And it's going to affect all of us eventually.
Right. Nicole.
All right. I think I'm ready to jump in with you guys and maybe ask Tim a question, or I think it might end up being like a two-part question, if that's all right.
Yeah,
shoot. Yes, no.
Kind of based off of some tweets that you made last week, and not anything specific, because this kind of came off of Grant and I's Rumors and Gossip three-part series. You had tweeted a few things about anytime information comes out, there's always possibly this element of disinformation being leaked into the community as well to murky the waters. So kind of, Tim, based off of that, and in the vein of my rumors and gossip theme that I've had over the last week, what do you say to the rumors out there that you're possibly on someone's payroll, perhaps in the role of a Richard Doty?
No, thank you for asking that. I'm glad you brought. I'm glad you brought it up. No, thank you. Okay, well, first of all, let's unpack the first question. And Bob knows I reached out to Bob personally, and we spoke privately, and I apologized to him for being an asshole. Am I allowed to say that on there?
Not really, but we'll let that one slide.
That's all right.
I apologize.
It applies.
Okay, I apologize for being a jerk, and I overreacted. And I think now that people have seen my article, maybe I can explain where my headspace was, and that was that I knew I was getting ready to report on things with sources who couldn't be named, that I was referring to things that were still classified. They're not being officially released. And I was extremely concerned about, about Bob, frankly, or anybody, Bob in his sphere or anything. I didn't want to see anybody get in trouble. And so I was worried that I didn't realize that, and that's my own fault, that we were talking about different incidences. Bob was referring to the photograph we released yesterday. I thought it was going to be more specific to the more recent intelligence report. And so, that was where that all kind of stemmed from. And it was this concern about, anytime when you're reporting on something, especially sensitive information like this, you are both legally and morally obligated to your own sources, because you can't do anything that risks their careers and their livelihood. And so I was concerned in that regard, but I have no problem saying here live, I apologize to Bob for that. And I have to learn to not, sometimes I have to just leave Twitter. And I think that's best, for the world. It allows you to just make calm, informed decisions.
Amen, brother.
But when I said the disinformation thing, there was also a concern in there for me, because I was well aware that the intelligence community as a whole, so nobody specifically, they were aware of what I was working on, and it had kind of snuck out. I mean, Bob, if you've worked in this world, or Sean, from being in the military, anybody, we have these images of what different institutions are like, and they're actually just like probably anybody else's job, where it's like a big high school of grown-ups, and so they talk and rumor amongst themselves. And so I knew that it was spreading throughout the intelligence community. Hey, do you know this guy Tim McMillan's working on this? And, I talked to people who, they live in neighborhoods in Virginia and everything, where all your neighbors, say they work at one agency, but everybody wink, wink. Nobody knows what they really do, but they were talking about it. So people I don't know.
I've been contacted by more cryptological technicians and other people who were perusing the SIPRnet, who were like, I know what this is. It's an American program. You got to tell me the truth. And I'm like, we're not going to go down this road. It's, everybody wanted to be the smart guy in the room who knew what was going on.
Sure. Yeah. And so I had a concern that it's not even about maybe an overt cover up like people might think, but rather you're always going to have competing fractions inside government, whether it comes to funds, whether it comes to what they think is important or not important. And you're going to have a good example is if anybody's ever read the book or seen the movie they did on the book about the hunt for bin Laden, and the analyst, how hard she had to fight to say, look, we know Osama bin Laden is here. I know it. But didn't get anybody to act on it. And you would think that a lot of people would want to act on that, given, he's the mastermind of 9/11. But you have people with competing interests. So you're going to have people inside the government who still think that this topic is silly, not because they don't think it's real, but rather because they'd rather do what they're doing and keep their own budgets. And so there was a concern that with people knowing an article was coming out, that they might try to tank it in some regard, make it silly. Now, in terms of your latter question about anybody's payroll type thing, that kind of stuff goes on the internet. I hear very rarely on things like Reddit or any message boards, because I just A, don't have time, but B, I tell everybody, if they came and spent a week with me, a month with me, a year, I don't care, whatever you want to do, they would realize how boring my life is in comparison to what they think.
I've seen your walls; they're beige.
Right. You'd be waiting for me to be this super spy or Rick Doty, and you'd see me like picking up dog poop in the backyard, washing clothes, taking my kids to school.
Grandpa, and he's a likable guy. So you're saying you're not on anybody's payroll and you're not a disinformation artist. So can you tell me what your intelligence background is?
Sure. Yeah. No, I can. And first of all, I can tell you 100% conclusively, I am not on anyone's payroll, and nor am I a agent, a contract, or anything otherwise with any government. The latter part of that, in terms of what is my background, it's Google searchable. A career in law enforcement. Part of my specialty in law enforcement was criminal intelligence work, and so this is where you're looking at criminal networks like cartels, that type of stuff, and you're trying to get bad guys. I was a violent crimes investigator. Everything that I do now, I apply the trade that I was learned, taught, and grew up in since I was 21 years old, and it's investigating. I'm not a journalist, I'm an investigator. And so I don't know what's my time frame, Dave, but I'll be glad to.
We got about 35, 40 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, my background is in law enforcement, and I employed the same things that I did there that I would do in law enforcement, including, gaining sources. We call them confidential informants. And that has benefited me in this, and being able to talk to officials inside government. It's the same thing we used to do when we get confidential informants. But I also grew up in that world, and I'm probably running out of time. So maybe after the break, I'll expand on that more, because I know people wonder about that.
Sure. You know what? And I'm going to convince all of you guys, instead of going with the news tonight, that I think we should stick around for a full hour 3. I'll let you guys ponder that when we come back on Spaced Out Radio Hour 3 with an incredible panel. Science Bob McGwier. We have Grant Cameron, Nicole Sakach, Sean Cahill, Tim McMillan, and yours truly on the mighty SOR. It's good stuff, people. Good stuff. This is making memories here. We've broken a record. 236 live. I'm happy about that.
Who had the old record?
Grant Cameron, 213.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be right back. You guys chat away.
No problem. I'm glad you asked that, Nicole, because I hear that a lot, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't be suspicious of myself if if I wasn't from the outside. But
everybody I know would sure love to get on a payroll.
Right, that's my thing. Is I'm like, shit. People don't realize I live paycheck to paycheck.
Maybe Tim, you could address, because I would have thought about when Nicole brought it up, the same question, because as you know, there's been counterintelligence. Is there still a counterintelligence? Like, if you see Barack Obama said, yeah, I tried to get it, I got it, I'm not going to talk about it, which would mean that it's lawfully classified. Can you go to the thing whether there might still be a U.S. Air Force counterintelligence, or where they're still trying to cover this up?
Sure. No, I'll be glad. Yeah, when we get back on the air to talk about that. I mean, from what I know, and I'll give my opinion and the legal basis behind some of that. Okay. I think it's. I'm glad somebody asked that, because I hear lots of rumors about me being a secret agent. I'm like, gosh, I wish my life was that cool.
Because you know that I deal with Ron Pandolfi, and Ron Pandolfi says this is all a techno scam, and this is all just these people should go to jail and all this kind of stuff. And he's a pretty high level guy, whoever he is. I don't know who he actually is, but.
Yeah, Ron's an interesting cat.
You were that cool, though. Like, it's kind of like the trademark of a spook. You want to be that guy who's boring, who blends in. We know it's not James Bond running around. I mean,
but it's usually counterintelligence guys like Richard Doty, where they actually are counterintelligence guys, and that's their job, is to cover the leaks and things get too carried away and stuff. And I mean, it seems to have been going on all the years. And so my only question to you is, do you think that there's still this kind of some elements inside the government that still want this thing covered up?
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to expand on that on the air. And it'd just be opinion, because I
understand.
Unless you work for the Mossad do some fun James Bond stuff. I wrote an article about that recently. They enjoy having the crazy James Bond reputation, part of their defensive strategy. So, but yeah, in my experience, you're right. Good spies, they're supposed to blend in, but and in that regard, I'd be a horrible one if that was true, because clearly people would be suspicious. It'd be the person nobody thinks about, it'd be UFO Joe, he's the spook. Just kidding, Joe, don't rage at me. I was just kidding.
Joe hasn't been the same since he cut his hair.
Joe's one of my informants, so watch out.
Yes, no, I'm sure people have seen me and Joe battle, but I think we're both emotionally charged people. I have nothing against him.
All right. We've got about 2.5 minutes here.
Oh, wow.
Tim, what's your timeline?
Oh, man, I'm up and awake. This is the start of my day. I'm good. We can chat until tomorrow and on into the new year.
Are you guys are all the rest of you guys good with skipping the news part at the bottom of the hour and going straight through?
If you double the pay.
Double the pay. Grant, you're so expensive to me.
I was like, wait, people are getting paid? Hang on a minute. See, why am I the one getting accused of on a payroll?
I'm the spy. I'm the spy here.
Right. Why am I? Yeah.
Man, I just spent $2,000 on equipment, and I'm in pre-production. This is my money. This is not someone else that's paying for this.
Oh,
Yes.
you guys are awesome. Thank you all for doing this. This means a lot to us here.
No,
Oh, good.
it's great on my part to get to chat to a lot of, like I said, like Sean, Grant, and in fact, Grant, I think we've only spoken beforehand via email because you gave me some great quotes on Stanton Friedman's archive, which I really appreciate. That was.
And if you want a link to the archives, just if you want, can give you actually a click of a mouse and give you the actual 6,000 pages I've got. You can actually.
Oh,
wow. What I didn't have time to look at it, so I just give people access and tell them if you find anything interesting, just let me know. And so if you want access, I'm going back there once the COVID thing's over and probably get 10, 12, 13,000 more pages. But if you want access, I can give you a click of a mouse and you can have access to the files if you want.
That'd be great, Grant. And yeah,
I'd like to stand in line behind him for that too.
I just want Stanton Friedman's eyebrows. That's all I want.
I tell people that article I wrote on Stanton Friedman's archive is actually the only UFO article I've ever written. Everything else has been defense or national security stories that just happen to be about UFOs. But that was the only one that was like, this is UFO specific. But I thought it was, I thought Friedman was that insignificant of a figure. And I think the fact that his archives are being archived, I think there's information out of there that's going to just come from years to come, because I'm sure, like Grant, you've been doing this a long time. You realize that information that doesn't seem important at the time.
Or that you agreed to cover up or to keep confidential. Like the Cuban story where the Cuban jet scramble where they lost the jet. That was in the files. I knew it was there, but
hold on, guys. 5 seconds here. Hold on.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio, tonight's special edition. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you, everyone, for listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Heteroceous. Heteroceous is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We're going the distance tonight with our panel of Tim McMillan, Grant Cameron, Nicole Sakach, Bob McGwier, otherwise known as Science Bob, and Sean Cahill, as we are talking UFOs. The new article from Debrief.org, thedebrief.org, that is, and Tim McMillan's new website, gentlemen. And Nicole, welcome back.
Thank you.
Not everybody talk at once here. This is radio. This is radio.
A follow-up question.
Yeah, go ahead, Nicole.
On a lighter note, and maybe away from the military case talks, is there any non-military cases like Travis Walton, etc., that you've looked into and that you believe?
Oh, yeah. Well, no. Okay. Yeah. No, it's funny you bring up Travis Walton because I was just talking about this. Now, there's a plenty of cases that I've read or that other researchers have done that I look at and go, wow, that's really, really compelling. Travis Walton's being one of them. And I just talked about this with someone because, I looked at this and in his cases, you have these eyewitnesses. And I didn't realize until just recently that you had physical evidence, too, in terms of the area that, this occurred at, where you had, from what I read, evidence of, typical with radiation exposure. So you saw in areas like Chernobyl, where you have dead foliage. In one localized area, that just in that exterior perimeter, you have an explosion of foliage. So you have a mutation of growth. And I looked at that and went, gosh, the fact that people are more dismissive of it, are willing to ridicule it. And from me, coming from a law enforcement background, I mean, that's, I was an investigator for years. I testified. I was a violent crimes investigator, and I thought to myself, this may very well be a testament to the U.S. criminal justice system, and I can accept that if it is, and maybe it's a flawed system. But I look at cases like that and think you've got anecdotal testimonial evidence, and then if you've got physical evidence, I have very literally, been participated where people were convicted and sent to prison for the rest of their lives with similar or less evidence than that something occurred. Mm-hmm.
Tim, can you tell us all about in places like that, especially, and no offense to the rural areas of America, but can you educate us on how training is very different in a small town versus a big city versus a military police officer, et cetera?
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's one of the things that I hope people realize is that, in American law enforcement, every single state is their own fiefdom, and you have different policies and rules, and whether you have a sheriff's department or you have city police departments, there is no set standard policy procedures other than constitutional law that you abide by. And so, absolutely, like you just said, Sean, you're going to have different law enforcement methods, different ways things are practiced, and especially in rural areas when you have major events. And I was a adjunct police academy instructor at the Ogeechee Technical College for many years, and that was training mostly rural law enforcement officers who would go out there. And I used to tell them, like, the vast majority of your job is going to be kind of boring. You're in these rural areas that are pretty Sleepy Hollow, but when there is a major incident, it's going to be totally, absolutely crazy. Like, I worked in an area where the violent crime rate was literally 300 points higher than the city of Chicago. It was not Mayberry, but out in these rural areas, what we had were drug dealer shootings and things that horrible crimes that were senseless and loss of life. But you go in these rural areas and you would have just crazy, somebody murdered the entire family and strung them up like Christmas ornaments in the yard. You're like, what is this? And because it's not something that they deal with frequently, they're not as experienced in it. And it's hard, when you look at something like that. And, I think we spoke on one of the breaks that you kind of mentioned that the lack of really focal point for examining UFOs in the U.S. government. And law enforcement was the same way, in that I know for a fact on multiple occasions we had people call 911, and our officers would go there and they would report UFO sightings. There was no mechanism in place to report that. There was no mechanism to do anything with it. And that's so unfortunate. I mean, that's something that if there was any advocacy side of me, that I would say I would like to see changed, because there's no mechanism to report it. There's no way to catalog that. And because every agency is their own fiefdom, they can choose what they want to do. That's very unfortunate, because you're talking about the largest set of trained observers, who are the only set who are working over the continental United States 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, holidays and weekends. Yep. And so, they have the potential to arrive on scene right after a sighting. And now with body camera technology and everything, you get an eyewitness account captured as fresh as it comes, the best you can get in eyewitness testimony. And so that's one of the things that maybe that's, you said what's coming next, Dave, is maybe I need to do a big op-ed saying, it's great to see the Department of Defense and the military taking it seriously. It's time for law enforcement too. We can do our part, because it's either not happening, which I don't think the evidence supports that, or it is happening. And any way you cut the cake, if it is happening, it should be taken seriously. If you don't think it's other, then it's an enemy.
We talk about a lot about need to know, and that's how things we're going to get out of the system are going to operate. But I feel like the American people need to pick up a need to care, because right now they're still giggling. It's still entertainment. Once we can push that domino over and they realize that this is real, I'm not wrapped around the axle about a threat narrative. I just need people to stop giggling about this, and then we can really look into all of the older witness accounts and other things like that and start pulling out the salient data. But it's going to be up to us. I mean, I'm not making it out for just the 4 or 5 of us, but it's going to be up to the people that are pushing this forward now to bring that all together. I mean, we're going to have to mend fences, work together, and really try harder.
So maybe this is for everybody on the panel. We've discussed in some of Grant and I's disclosure panel discussions this idea that this current narrative is kind of rewriting ufology to maybe start with 2017 or the Nimitz encounters and the 2017 articles. How important do you think it is for us in the limelight now, breaking down these barriers, to go back and revisit cases like Travis Walton's with physical evidence, like Lonnie Zamora, his case is, that's a police officer sighting.
I think it's imperative.
Police investigated. I'm even thinking of like Cash Landrum with the treatment that they sought after, their encounter, and which they received through the military. They got treated through the military. So do you guys think it's imperative that we not forget our own history in this community, even though they may be through the lens of citizen investigators like MUFON or other groups?
I'm saddened by what we all saw go down at MUFON. The personal choices people were making that basically brought down what the rest of us thought was going to, going forward, help be an edifice to disseminate historical data. I think it's I don't want to discount the idea that the past or civilian statements, I hesitate to use the word experiencer because I'm still not sure what we're all experiencing. But I think it's imperative that we go back to those and we give them the respect and the dignity that they deserve. Because while I'm one of the people that really cheerleads for Lou and Chris Mellon and folks like that who are willing to come out and give this gravitas in daylight, there's a lot. Lou is the first person to say that it's the witnesses. And for him, it's the military witnesses who came forward. But I think what you're talking about, and I don't want to be resistant to it, the people who came before us are ridiculously important to how we're all going to see this. And people like Travis and the physical evidence that was there. Tim and I are on the same topic on this. We've discussed the radiation data from there with some of the same people and how we might be able to derive some of that to give us more information on possible travel routes or other tactical and strategic data. But the people are what's most important to me, and I'm not saying that flippantly. So I don't want you to think that I only truck with military folks. It's just that right now I'm not in a position where I'm able to pull the archive out front and make that the subject for myself.
I agree everything that Sean said, and not only is it imperative for understanding, but I have no problem saying it's a moral imperative, because when you talk about cases, whether it's Travis Walton or Lonnie Zamora or Cash Landrum, or we could just continue to go down the line, you're talking about people who experienced something they didn't ask for, or, it happened, and in a lot of cases they were ridiculed. They were made fun of. They were personal.
Still are.
Yeah,
that's very important to us. Yeah, that's really important to us. That does not continue.
No, there were personal and professional consequences, and by all accounts, for people just sharing something that happened to them. I mean, like I said, I go back again. If it was a crime, if it was an armed robbery, what would they do? They would report it. Nobody would make fun of it. So the idea that, in so many cases where you don't see, people just say, oh, they just want attention, they're trying to make money. And then you look at the real nitty gritty and you go, gosh, they didn't make any money. Cash lunchroom, they suffered horrible medical effects, the consequences of their lives. So I think it's not just the data. Everything Sean said is 100%, but I think there's a moral imperative that you go back and you make sure those cases aren't lost, because you want to say, hey, these people were treated poorly, and it's our own fault. It's our own lack of understanding, and it's our own, the unknown is scary. I don't care what it is. And I think that's where we add so much to try to know what it is that maybe isn't always factual, because the unknown's scary.
If this mystery pans out to be even a fraction of what so many of us hope that it will be, if we ever gain any understanding, or if it can sit still long enough that we can replicate it without destroying ourselves. I mean, we have so much ahead of us. People are it's a big deal. And for folks right now, the idea that the government takes it seriously is brand new. We just got that. And I mean, I'm not kissing Tim's butt, but he gave it to us, and he did it in a succinct fashion that we're going to get to keep going back to and showing people.
I want to get to a comment Giorgio makes in our YouTube chat. He says, experiencers, including contactees and abductees and other forms of contact makers, are crucial to understand carefully and respectfully. Also, the positive plus. And as an experiencer myself, I know this. I mean, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I didn't have the answers, and there's a lot of other people who don't have that voice to come out, start a podcast, start a radio show or a YouTube channel, or even go on Facebook Live. And I think they are closer to the answers than what we're all getting here today discussing.
The hard data is going to need people to explain what we're looking at. You get theoretical physicists who do the math, and then someone has to draw the pictures that let the rest of us wrap our head around it. And there's parts of this too, and we're going to find out who we all are in this. I mean, there's more to this than just anomalous stuff in the air. But that's not ready for prime time yet, because we're trying to move out of the entertainment aspect. And I don't mean that with any stink on it. Lou and I were having a pretty deep conversation today about the difference between needing to be entertaining versus entertainment. And he and I are not really all that happy that to have the conversations that we want to have, they have to be properly framed in a shot and presented in a proper way to show everyone else, the things that we may solve or understand together on these niche groups that we're spread out in right now are not enough for the 8 billion people that don't know what the heck's going on.
Right. We got 7 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour here. Tim, I want to get into the counterintelligence element of this. There's a lot of games being played behind the scenes. What have you incurred?
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it back up, because, I got distracted and didn't touch on that. But, Nicole, you asked me about the counterintelligence element, and that's absolutely a very salient point. And so, first of all, let me discuss counterintelligence and the idea that everything that we're seeing out of the government right now, meaning U.S. government, is some sort of counterintelligence effort. Okay. First of all, I always say nothing's off the table until it's off the table. Everything's on the table until it isn't. And so, until we have some really, really hard factual data in place, I try to avoid working in realms of what's completely impossible. But I'll say that, there are legal ramifications in terms of the U.S. government engaging in what would be an overt propaganda campaign with the American people that are directed at it. It's illegal. Not saying that, and I'm sure people can bring up a whole bunch of cases where, at times elements of the government have acted illegally or unethically. And so I understand. I think that needs to be examined. For me, in my standpoint, I look at it and go, the conspiracy for that to be going on would continue to grow to be so widespread that you're talking about pilots, aviators, politicians, all these people involved that just seems so just incredibly unlikely you could get that many people involved. And I point out anybody who's ever had to deal with the IRS because there was a screw up on their taxes, or frankly just deal with the federal government. I've never seen that level of efficiency. In fact, it's to be able to capable of a conspiracy of any grand sort. It's typically bureaucracy that just slows everything down. However, there's absolutely, and maybe that's the next article that I'm going to share, is that people need to be very mindful of the fact that there is intelligence efforts at play, but not always by the people you suspect, meaning, i.e., the U.S. government's trying to hide what they know. Rather, foreign governments, and I know this for a fact because this is something that I have been examining for a year now and kind of monitoring, is you have foreign governments that are very interested in what's going on with the United States. They're experiencing the same things as the United States. And because there is, just inherently a theme of mistrust in U.S. government surrounding the UFO topic, in a lot of regards with merit, because you brought up the kind of Rick Doty, Benowitz stuff, or, the CIA kind of candidly saying, yeah, we used to let people believe that the U-2 spy plane was a UFO, this type of stuff. So there is a mistrust there, but that is something that foreign adversaries of the United States are using and can use to exploit. And so some of the ideas that where you get disinformation or bad information that comes out, it doesn't have to be the U.S. government. It can be other foreign governments who are doing that for two purposes. One is just to sow discord in the American public, mistrust. It's no different than we see in a lot of the political things that have gone on, a lot of the quote, fake news, or the articles that are, Pizzagate, all these different things. Any chaos and discord that can be sowed is good. Two is the ability to recruit unwitting spies, in which you're actually hunting the development of the RQ-175 or the RQ-180 drone, but you're going to go out here and tell people, hey, I hear that they're hiding the UFOs here. What you're hoping is that citizens themselves do the work for you and try to uncover secrets and classified information that don't relate anything to UFOs, but rather technology. Now, in those cases, and that's why I said maybe that needs to be my next article, because I believe that the case can be made that right now the way that the U.S. government is handling their public affairs and they're addressing this topic is a bigger national security concern in that regard than anything that can be UFOs. Because when I repeatedly ask public affairs and I say, this is what I plan to publish, this is what I'm telling you, listen, you just put out this statement and I have all of this information that contradicts it, it's going to make you look bad. Do you want an amendment? And they tell me, no, got nothing to say. You might as well just, what happens then is you let everyone else write the narrative for you. And if it is foreign bad actors, they're going to write the narrative that benefits them. And from a defense security standpoint, the information warfare battlefield, that is the battle space of today and the future. With the internet, with social media, you're able to influence the hearts and minds like never before. And so the counter intel element that you mentioned, I do think is very real. And I think people should always look at it. And you will never hear me say, even in the articles that I publish or put out there, just take my word for it or trust me. Please, by all means, peer review, ask questions, and continue to dig yourself and confirm. And so I would encourage people to always be wary of information, be wary of what is when you work investigations or intelligence, intent and motivation is what you should always look for. What is someone's intent and what is their motivation? And so, be wary of the information that you're getting out there. But I know for a fact that there's some well-known UFO bloggers and stuff who were contacted by people in past fake information. They were smart enough and heads up enough to reach out to people who would know what's real and not. But in my opinion, they were not being targeted by the U.S. government.
I have found, if I may, that there are more people playing spy.
Yes.
That are more dangerous than anyone that I've met who's in the intelligence services. It's the folks that think that they're in a game.
Yes.
And
that's called UFO Twitter, my friend. Called UFO Twitter.
Yeah,
Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Tim McMillan, Sean Cahill, Nicole Sakach, Grant Cameron, Science Bob. We finish off strong, coming back with the UFO panel right after this.
And
there we go.
It's funny, Bob, and you probably are very familiar with that world, is that, inside the intel community, well, especially the U.S. intel community, starting in 2000, probably 8, things have moved into signals intelligence and everything much more. And that the spy world is a lot of, I mean this I mean this with love, but it's full of nerds and computers, and so it's not.
Tell me about it. Not only that, when you do, even if you do active operations, it's hundreds of hours of boredom and a few minutes of terror.
Yes. No,
it is not what people think it is.
No. I mean, I worked a lot. I did violent crimes, but I was tasked a lot with different elements that, like the DEA and stuff. And yeah, when you do like cartel investigations, people don't realize, first of all, you're talking about hundreds of hours just to get, a search warrant that allows you to tap somebody's phone and everything. And then when you have a phone tap, by law, it requires you to have an agent monitoring that phone 24/7. And by law, they're only allowed to, they're allowed to listen to the call for the first 60 seconds. If there's no talk about anything illegal, you have to hang up for 60 seconds, pick it back up. This type of thing where it's very boring and it's very tedious. God bless those that want to do it, because I'm too ADHD for that.
And then you find you've got an interesting target. You're doing, and oops, they're talking to a U.S. person, and you can't listen anymore.
Yes. There's so many. Yeah, there's so many.
People do not understand the restrictions.
So that must be different than Canada, because up here, the law is you can record any phone conversation as long as one or more of the parties know that the phone call is being recorded.
Not in the U.S. Not by U.S. intelligence personnel. There is a U.S. Signals Intelligence Directive which forbids U.S. persons from being put under cover, eavesdropped on, or wiretapped or whatever without a FISA warrant, and it is a pain to get one.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Okay, were those in place when Doty was doing his stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll comment on say something about Doty in particular. I don't know how much of what Doty was doing was officially sanctioned or how much was personal, and I mean that because it's kind of surprising to me. In Doty's case, if a lot of what he claims he was doing was officially sanctioned, that you wouldn't have seen the Inspector General's office or somebody step in here.
I'm serious, because a lot of what he did, I'm with Tim. I'm just wondering about it, because a lot of that stuff is just plain illegal.
Yeah.
But can a military guy go and do a bunch of illegal stuff without his? Because Doty actually names his superior that gave him the instruction. I don't remember the guy's name, but I mean, is it possible that a military guy can just go rogue and start doing whatever he wants? And
let me tell
anything's possible.
Let me tell you when Doty gave the name after the whatchamadick period ran out, the statute of limitations.
Yeah. Yeah,
You waited
Okay.
until the statute of limitations ran out.
I
Okay.
had a couple of skippers that did what they did and did what they wanted, and it was their ship. And when we pulled in, they were the king, and it was their sovereign territory.
Mhm.
And you don't get them a lot, but when you say, can people get away with stuff, it's
Oh yeah.
when we were in the middle of the Tic Tac incident, I was in the middle of a major investigation on illegal weapons and ammunition spread out across the battle group. And the echelons that went up to actually got NCIS to tell me to back off.
Okay, let me give you another
So when-
example. I got the Bill Moore file, the FBI file, which he filed for himself in 1988. I think it's 55 of 61 pages of that FBI file are B1 national security exemption, totally exempt. I've been fighting, now I'm on an appeal with the FBI to get this redone. But that would indicate that something serious was going on there, because he wasn't just some school teacher who, you know, when you get that kind of exemption in an FBI file that they are trying to block me from getting a review on, it appears to me there was something
Right.
more than just Richard Doty going on here.
Gentlemen, ladies,
There's another
hold
piece
on.
to it.
You guys chat. I got to get the show ready here. Thank you so much to Black Talon, Jenny, Teresa, Science Bob, G. West, Linda, Vinny, Ladybug, Cat Chaser, Fapster, Pro Illusionist, and Human Carl for the super chats. Here we go, everyone, with the final half hour of tonight's show. Let's do this thing. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We have the big panel going tonight. We are going to get right into it right now because I want to try and eat up as much of this time with them as we can. We are joined tonight by Science Bob McGwier. We have Grant Cameron, Nicole Sakach, Sean Cahill, and Tim McMillan. We are going UFOs all night long. And Tim, I want to ask you right now, okay, because we keep itching closer and closer and closer to the ultimate question of whether or not these craft that we are seeing are of human or extraterrestrial intelligence. When is somebody finally going to say, Tim, we've got aliens?
Ooh, I don't know. If I knew that, or if I, heard anything like that, I would certainly. That's not a story I would sit on. If I heard that from anybody and felt like there was substance behind it. So I don't have an answer for that. What I will say is kind of, anybody that read my last article, they should have kind of gotten an insight to just my personal feelings and everything. Is I kind of ended that article a little bit exasperated and saying, look, I've talked to everybody, well, not everybody, but I've tried really hard, whether it's aerospace engineers, military personnel, defense experts, national security. I can't get anybody on or off the record that says this is classified testing or even thinks that's a remote possibility. I can't get anybody that would say they believe that it's technology possessed by another state actor or non-state actor, even as unlikely as that might seem. Nor can I get them to say that it's aliens or whatever. It's left with this big mystery. I just had a conversation with a good friend of mine who's a defense journalist, a national security journalist, and they don't cover UFOs, but they have tried to cover this topic for the last 3 years. And they, for 2.5 years, have kept telling me, no, it's going to be some classified program, Tim. It's going to be ours. It's going to be, something. And then just recently they reached out and said, man, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's been 3 years. We should know something. If it was, if it was the latest iteration of some stealth technology. He goes, and they were exasperated too. They're like, I don't know. And
I think if people start expanding their search, they are going to find, and this is what the rest of us are here to start explaining, is that the phenomenon is not as simple as just unidentified flying objects. And a lot of people who have worries about conspiracies, about name changes, the phenomenon is a much larger idea than an object that is up in the sky. And no one has a good answer for this because the phenomenon has not revealed its identity yet. So asking anyone what this is an unanswerable question until such time that this self-identifies.
Yeah, absolutely, Sean. And I'll just say that's where I'm at, is that whenever you reach a point in an investigation or a research study, whether it's empirical or anything, and you have a hypothesis and you arrive at the point where your conclusion is both yes and no simultaneously. And we think it's this binary idea. What that ultimately means is that the true answer lies beyond the hypothesis. So you haven't asked the right question. And so the answer here, I think that's where we're at. And I agree with what Sean said. Some people maybe take offense, then they like the UFO moniker and the UAP moniker. It seems they don't like it, any change. But I think, like Sean just mentioned, to me, that's a more accurate, because flying indicates that they're engaged in flight as we define it by the principles of flight: lift, drag, propulsion. And what we're hearing and seeing, and I've said this before, they're not flying by that definition. Maybe colloquially, they're in the air. So aerial is correct. And object, maybe, again, that real answer lies beyond that hypothesis. And object, in terms of the idea that this is materially as we define it, as in I can jump in a 747 and fly somewhere, or I can fly a drone, that may not be accurate. And so
I think Grant is someone who can speak on the idea that there are energetic aspects of this that don't have form and function in the way that we understand them, and Grant's been dealing with that for a long time, and for a very long time, things like that have not been given the time of day whatsoever. And
I think that goes to technology. That if you're looking at the military, you're looking at industry, they're looking basically at technology, not really interested in anything beyond that.
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
Well, and what's interesting, I'll jump in real quick and just mention this because I didn't put it in the article, but you touched on this earlier, Bob, when you said that things that we're defying how we understand physics. It was reiterated to me multiple times when I was trying to get background and just talk to people about these intelligence memos or just what's going on. Something I thought was very interesting is several people were very specific to say, listen, it's not defying physics. It's defying how we don't know how to achieve what's being done, but in terms of breaking the laws of mathematics and physics, it's not. Now, that doesn't mean that what you said earlier, defying physics, is incorrect. It means that, in my opinion, our science and understanding of physics has expanded, and you look in realms like quantum physics and quantum mechanics to where you realize, oh, wait, there is a mathematical framework for this. We don't know how to do it, but it's not crazy. It's not as fantasy as people think. And my background is in cognitive psychology, of all things. But before I got into law enforcement, I want to be a research psychologist. And the human mind is interesting, and it's always kind of I've mused at the fact that in psychology, it's very well accepted that we don't know anything, and the theories change constantly. We don't understand the mind, and the things that we're willing to accept as science, and say, well, this is empirical fact, are, in many cases, less baseless than the idea of what's being discussed when it comes to UFOs.
At the moment, the status of this topic is dynamic cognitive dissonance on all fronts. There is no single place to look for an answer that we can all carry forward together, and I hope that that's what we're all doing today, is starting something new.
Well, I want to point out, just for everybody's to remind everyone that this is precisely what Jacques Vallée told us over 2 decades ago in Passport to Magonia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey
And
guys,
Jacques doesn't get enough respect.
Nicole.
I want to jump in here since we were just talking about these things flying, not flying, and Bob and Grant. I've been asked from the White House UFO chief inventor. He wants us to talk about the Nellis video.
Oh,
Good question.
That's my
Yeah.
son.
Okay. I was like, wait, the White House is tuning in?
That little 5-year-old inventor. He's the inventor for.
He's
for
amazing.
Cool. Cool. Okay, yeah, because people did ask me about the inclusion of the Nellis video. Like, what was up with that? Maybe that was a little Easter egg that I didn't go in depth with. But I'll tell you where I got that video from. It was my good buddy Nick Cook, anybody who's familiar with him, who wrote The Hunt for Zero Point, former Jane's Defense.
Mm-hmm.
Love Nick. I mean, very great guy. We talk frequently, and he had mentioned to me seeing that video many years ago and saying, Tim, that looks just like the Tic Tac, I'm telling you. And so he found it a year after we discussed it and shared that entire 12-minute video. And so that's why we uploaded it. I think it's been out there before, but I wanted to include it in that article because, in my opinion, I think we're looking at something there that's very similar to the Nimitz incident, where everybody knows it was leaked in 2007, and everybody went, yeah, whatever, dude, and kind of dismissed it. It wasn't until later that people said, no, this is real, that it becomes such a significant topic. And that Dallas video, I think, is very similar. I'm hesitant to say this, but I will, because it only came from one person. But I did ask somebody who should know, and they said that video is authentic, 100% authentic, in terms of it showing something that we don't know. When you watch that video, it's very interesting to me because it engages, whatever that object is, and it was filmed in 1993, it engages in maneuvers that we could characterize today as maybe like a racing drone, where it's skipping from side to side. But when I was able to interview some of the pilots who observed the Tic Tac object in 2004, I've said frequently the most compelling interview I had was from Commander Fravors' wing woman, who's still in the Navy and doesn't want to be named, and we respect that. But when she talked to me about what truly unnerved her most was the behavior that the object was engaging with prior to, when you had the Fravor intercept where it's following him and then darts off. And that was hovering over the water and bouncing around like a ping pong ball, or, I liken it to a housefly, erratic movements. To me, that's very interesting and compelling. I mean, that, again, my background's kind of in a behavioral area. And so I always look at those behavioral aspects. And if you're talking about a technology that is either being flown by a human being or is designed by man, we're always going to design systems that make sense to what our mission at hand, what we want it to do. The idea of just erratically darting around doesn't make sense. I mean, why would you design something like that? And moreover, I think, here's something I haven't even said publicly, but looking at that and that darting around action, you look at why would something do that? And, again, I went back to it looks like a housefly. And the reason houseflies dart around erratically like that, people don't realize, is because they have a much higher flash rate in terms of their image rate and how they process visual perception. Their brains process their environment at such a rapid rate that the housefly is not moving fast to it. It is, 1 second to the housefly, or excuse me, one second to us is 10 to the housefly. They're flying in a constant, matrix slow motion dodging bullet world because they're able to process visual information at a much faster rate. And so I look at that, and if you're talking about something that's capable of making erratic movements like that, are we talking about something that is either artificially or biologically able to process its environment at a just exponentially higher rate than we are? And I think if you're able to engage in the flight characteristics that people talk about, so instantaneous acceleration at just incredible speeds, you're talking about something that, again, biologically or artificially has to have a much faster flash rate in how it perceives its environment. And so there we go. We talked about earlier, why is it important to look at the historical cases? Because, these are those little details that maybe have been overlooked because we've been looking for, something else. We've been looking for the alien spacecraft or whatever, but we haven't examined those real details that maybe give an idea of what's going on here, technologically or even biologically. And so that's fascinating. And that Nellis video, to me, if you watch it, you have to watch it a couple times. At first, I thought it was the camera movement where you saw these jerky motions by the object. But actually, once you look at it, the object will just like dart to one side all of a sudden. And I welcome anybody.
I thought it looked like the gimbal video.
Yes.
It
yes.
kind of did that strange tilt. And then at another point, it almost changed shape to where it looked almost like a 4-leaf clover and then a square. So it was very fascinating to me. And on a side note, I'll say when my son watched it earlier, he said, it's blink, blink, blinking and dashing like Morse code SOS. It's calling for help. And then he tuned out.
It's very
Can I ask a related question?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think the phenomena is showing off? Like when the F-18s go after the Nimitz there, and then they go into the water and make the bubbles and stuff, and it's like it seems like it's like they're showing off. They're sending indirect messages.
I think it's a slippery slope to assign human emotion to what these things are doing until we know more.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with Sean. There is that I'm always very cautious about this because if let's just take the hypothesis that this is not human, we have to accept the idea that it is impossible for us to assess that same motivation and intent that's so important, or understanding to a psychology that is inherently alien. We can only assess. We assess human psychology onto animals even, all of us who have pets, will assess human traits to them and everything. So it's very difficult, but at least we have an understanding of animals. We can observe them. We have lots of science behind that. But if you're talking about something completely alien, I think it's totally great.
Okay, so then how can we put a threat on it if we can't put one emotion? Then we go to the Senate Appropriations Committee and to the Armed Services Committee, Intelligence, and we throw this threat thing out there.
Well, let me field that real quick. There's opportunity, intent, and capability inherent in a threat situation. Determining motive isn't something we can do until after the fact, or until the suspect that we're looking at engages us. So that's what I'm saying there. But I think that I'm not cutting down what you're asking. I just think that we should go with somebody like Jacques when we describe this, that there seems to be a trickster aspect to it. And that's been inherent for a very long time.
But there's trickster aspects to all paranormal phenomena, not just UFOs.
Well, but that's and Grant, I think that's the wider subject that people like yourself are going to have to help the rest of us explain to 8 billion people. Because that's the phenomenon aspect of this that isn't a flying object.
So
let me medium or something to hear.
I want to comment on one thing, especially in front of Sean, since he was on the Princeton and is aware of the Nimitz thing. When Fravor and his wingman were engaging with the Tic Tac and others, and they tried to lock on it with the radar, and they detected active jamming of the radar inside of their area of responsibility, that is an act of war.
Yes, to a geopolitical entity that understands conventions of war, and from our standpoint, yes. But if we're dealing with an unknown, that may have been a knee-jerk reaction in a system that we have no clue about. I'm
not claiming, Sean, they viewed it as an act of war.
Oh, certainly.
We view it as an act of war.
I agree with you. Incursions over our ranges, incursions over our nuclear facilities, and this is why I'm so wrapped up in the military aspect. Because if these are just interesting things that spook us and go bump in the night, I don't care. But they're showing up at places that can harm massive amounts of people if mistakes are made.
Was the Nimitz in international waters?
No. We were in a fleet training area that has that any sailboat can roll through if they're willing to possibly get hit with live rounds. I mean, we were out training. It's as Tim was saying earlier, people would be really surprised at what it's really like to do the job that folks haven't done. And being on the bridge of that ship during this event, this was a pain in the ass. It wasn't a spectacular event. What I saw was neat, and then the video was incredible. But we were just business as usual. And the idea that in the middle of this exercise that was stressing all of us out, because don't get me wrong, late at night, we're just talking on the bridge. We're maintaining situational awareness, trying to stay awake in a dark environment that's relatively boring. And it's not like people think. It's not sexy. There's nothing cool going on. And even the idea of a helicopter landing that night, and even me as the chief master at arms on the bridge, possibly even controlling the landing of that helicopter from the flight station on the bridge, I don't even need to know who's coming on board or not unless I need to give them a place to sleep and some sheets, because that helicopter squadron is handling their own business. So there's all kinds of ways that these things went down that night that were completely over the heads of everyone involved.
Hey, I got to ask before we're out of time, because I'll kick myself in the butt if I don't. And I'm the person who stirs the pot, I guess. But Tim, why are you so anti the Wilson documents?
I'm not, well, I'll say from my standpoint, I haven't seen enough evidence to substantiate certain things, but let me be very clear about that. By no means whatsoever do I say that thinking that Dr. Eric Davis is not being truthful, or anybody who, the written account is not truthful, that type of thing. It's in terms of where does that push things, what can you do after that? And for me, I won't say I'm anti them, but I've always looked at it as going that at the end of the day, everything that was said, the meeting can have occurred, was 100% genuine and true. But we're always left with this idea, was the contractor telling the truth? And so I don't know where that pushes things in terms of finding out past that. For me, one of the things that I'd be very interested in, and this goes back to the point you brought up earlier about...
what do you mean by the what contractor telling the truth?
10 seconds, guys. 10 seconds, guys.
That they came from Edgar Mitchell's files, or the provenance of how they got out of his personal files?
Yep.
Yeah. I know we're going to have to leave it on a cliffhanger because I got to say goodnight to all of you. And thank you so much. We're going to have to do this again. This was absolutely incredible. Tim McMillan, Grant Cameron, Science Bob McGwier, Sean Cahill, the lovely and talented Nicole Sakach. Thank you so much for coming on and discussing this amazing article, Tim. Keep up the great work. I think everybody in the UFO field is seeing what you're going to do next. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dave. Great being here.
Good night, Dave.
All right, we got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Everyone in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, Spreaker, LGAP, Revolution Radio, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club at our website, and all the snarkers and snarkettes hanging out on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You were all fantastic tonight. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for sharing your evening with us, because together, my friends, say it with me, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But tomorrow, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night.